Welcome to Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup. I'm your host, Jason Bland, and tonight we have a great guest. I've been really excited for this one. First time on the show, and I'm going to probably butcher his name here, James Szubski? I did not have a pre-set of phone call to ask him how to pronounce his last name, but the background information on this guest I am super interested in. It's going to be about the Columbia River Gorge. He is the operations officer at Margie's Outdoor Store right in the Columbia River Gorge, where a lot of paranormal activity happens. It's a hot spot. Talking UFOs, Bigfoot, big black cats, all kinds of weirdness. I'm sure some missing 411. Wasn't Mels Hole probably in that, would be considered in Columbia Gorge? I don't know. That was in Ellensburg, Washington. Can't remember. There's been a lot of weirdness there, definitely in Washington State. I know that. I think it goes from Washington State to southern Oregon is what is considered the Columbia Gorge. James is all into it, and we're going to talk about all he has documented and investigated about the Columbia River Gorge tonight. And, of course, we got a lot of weird to get to. Boy, do we have a lot of weird to get to. I have been, everybody sending me the Las Vegas UFO incident that everybody's talking about. We'll get to that first. I have to get that out of the way. And of course, whistleblowers, Satanists eating deer in the woods. We got all kinds of weirdness. Really, really. I have not had a shortage of weird stories every Sunday, sadly. That's not sadly. I guess a good thing for my show. But it is getting weird out there. Some really, really, really weird. It's great for my show, but I don't know for humanity's sake. I don't know. Got a lot to get to. Let's go ahead and get rolling on into it. Welcome to another night of Paranormal Soup. As I said before, I'm your host, Jason Bland. Tonight's guest, James Szubski, get that wrong, is going to join us after the World Wide Web of Weird after our first commercial break to talk about the Columbia River Gorge. For those listening on the Paranormal Soup radio network, we are a webcast. We do stream out live to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. You can join us by watching a video. I do have my lovely and beautiful co-host with me tonight, Jamie D. How you doing?
Doing good, thank you.
Glad to have you here. Have you ever been to, since you're in California, up to Washington or in the Columbia River Gorge area?
haven't been in that area, but I'm really wanting to go check it out.
It's a pretty large area. You might have been through it and didn't even know it. I don't know. I think it's considered a pretty large area. Never been to that part of the country. I would love to.
Oh,
Also joining me from a place I have been and would love to go back to, St. Augustine, Florida, Rob Autry himself. How you doing, Rob?
I'm doing. Yeah, the gorge, man, the Columbia Gorge, that's like a really good kite surfing spot, too.
Is it really good for what?
Kite surfing.
Kite surfing. Yeah,
Yep.
that sounds like you're surfing with a kite.
Yep.
I'll pass. Yeah, yep. I don't need anything to recklessly endanger my life. When I was younger, totally would have done it. Now I don't know. Sounds like you're gonna have a bad time. Well, you got a lot of weird to get to. You guys had Weird Wednesday. I have some of the stuff we're going to talk about tonight, but like the Satanists in the woods. But then, man, I literally have had so much weird stories every Sunday night the last few months. It's just things keep getting stranger. That's how it is. So let's go ahead and roll into the World Wide Web of Weird. Tonight on the World Wide Web of Weird, of course, I got to start out about this Las Vegas UFO crash, alien being sighted phenomenon. I had everybody and their mother messaging me this one pretty much right after it started to hit the market. My coworker JB, shout out to you. You're the first to text it to me. And man, this story is really blown up quick. And that's what's to me the strangest about it all. And you're going, Jason, why would it be strange? Why wouldn't it blow up with an alien? I mean, it's an outstanding story. Why? Because there's been outstanding stories like this over the years, and the major news media market doesn't pick it up generally. You know, our market does, but the major news media market, not so much. But they picked this up right away. And maybe it's because of the police involved, and, you know, you also have a respected journalist, and then I'm forgetting his name, George Knapp, involved. But anyways, so this kid, I can't go into all this tonight. I thought about just doing the World Wide Web of Weird on this. I don't want to do this, especially if this turns out to be a hoax. And that is a possibility in my mind, and it should be in everyone's. We've been fooled many a times. But this kid does a on tape, like social media post interview, or not interview, statement. And I say statement because he reads a statement. You can see him scrolling up at times. Body Language Ghost is a YouTube channel who I like, who does cover people's body language. And we'll talk about tonight about the Whistleblower. I love her video on him. On this kid, she does a video, and I don't know if I agree with her on everything because he is reading from a list. And she's saying this is not what trauma people do when they get to a certain point with their memory. They use their body. He's very, very withdrawn. If you listen to his phone call, too, I'm assuming that's the same kid on the phone call to the police, that's the comments and statements is that he's very withdrawn or very, not withdrawn, very not emotional. You know, you got a big 10-foot alien in your yard, you think he'd be panicked and screaming the phone. I know people, you could literally have a 10-foot alien in their backyard, and they are scared, they are shocked, but their demeanor is like that kid. They're just straight like that. There are people like that. I'm telling you. Their blood pressure rises, but you don't see it because they're very. It's like you know. I'm not making that. You know, Pedro. Like he's like, my head was on fire. You know, just people like talk like they always are at the same level, no matter what is going on. And I think that's what maybe this kid is like. I don't know what to believe this is real. So there's a lot of video and the talk. You know, George Knapp's interview on the interview. You know, this kid has a statement, and he shows the meteor, well, what looks like to me a meteor falling, which is or a UFO that the cops body cam shooted. She uses basically the news cycle broadcast that they had the night before to make his statement. And he says he has like almost an out-of-body experience. And it's not just him. There's multiple people that are saying this, I guess. An out-of-body experience when this thing comes whoosh. And he does use hand-body movement within the body. Language Ghost even says that. He does go like this, like he's signifying it. And you watch the police body cam footage, another family member is doing that, does this. It's like you can see him doing this. whatever the scene, it came down and whoosh. And he said it was like an out-of-body experience. When he looked at it, it was blurry, like they couldn't look at it. Okay? This could be some kind of camouflage things. Now, there's been a lot of videos looking at the very few seconds of video of them in the backyard looking through a gateway that's supposedly into this back area where the thing landed, and they see an alien being, and they're reacting and running and turning. It's literally a split second of video. I've seen some people look to the left of them, to the right of them, above them, to the right of the fence. It's some interesting footage I don't have that does show like a black figure, like a shadow person. And this could be cloaking technology. And when you see what I'm going to show you here, which is what a lot of people are focusing in, is between the two brothers' heads. I believe the one kid that's done this testimony is Angel. Between their two heads, for a split second, there is a spot where you can see the alien supposedly, and they've done zoom in and slow in. Go ahead and play the video. I got to be so quick about this. I could have made the whole wide web weird about this, but I couldn't. So this is the very quick video, and it literally is like a split second, and you just missed it. I think here, oh no, here it comes, where you see between the two boys' heads. I think it right there. That's literally what we're going to be looking at, because then it goes down, you can't see, and there's that. And there's a little bit of a video footage of it, but it's literally a split second. Now, there's video footage that's really interesting from above to the right of the fence. Somebody zoomed in and I saw this morning. They focused in on like a big shadow. Everything. And this scene is like bright green stuff down below it. And it's like a long neck. And yeah, that looks like 10 feet tall. If it's cloaking technology, it's like this thing's coming out of its cloaked suit. You see what I'm saying? Like how it's pitch black below it, but it's glowing green. And I've seen some other footage that's interesting, similar to this. So, is it a hoax? That's the question. We've been talking about this in our Facebook Messenger. I can't tell you. I would say if this is a hoax, it's kind of elaborate, because the whole story of this is that the police are on at a call in the neighborhood, in the area, and they spot a big green thing you're going to see coming down here in a second in the video. And supposedly there's a doorbell cam that also captures the crash and the sound of it. Okay, so here's what the police body cam. They're on a call. They see this. I've seen meteors that look like that a billion times. Could that be a flare? I'm not a flare guy. I don't know. Flare is usually a different color. What I'm saying is, here's the the camera. Wherever the source of this is, I don't know, but there's the bang. There's a lot of questions I have. This is the backyard where you can see there's like a circle somewhat there where they could have drawn, but you also see tire tracks that are putting more of an indent into that. You could literally done that with your foot. Who knows? He might not even touch the ground. It might have just been whoosh and hovering there. I don't know. But obviously, their story is these beings got out. They could hear their breathing. They could sense them and feel them, but they couldn't look at the ship. They said they felt like an out-of-body experience. Obviously, these people would be going through something. And the reason we can't find them or talk to them, either A, is because it's a hoax and this hit the major media network and these people are freaking out, or B, it's real. And if this is real and they had that close proximity to an extraterrestrial, I believe the government's protocol in this situation is to gather you up and put you in quarantine, lock you down, and threaten you until you shut up. And try to get as much of your video evidence you might have had, which doesn't sound like they had much. Just the split second. And people criticizing, well, one, his calmness on the phone. Like I said, could be the personality, could be the person.
There's been severe murders and things that people have walked in on that some people would be just out of their mind, bat crazy. But other people can come across it and be, they don't like what they're seeing, but they can be perfectly calm.
Eat your liver with a fine candy and some levitings. The blood pressure doesn't rise above 84. What did they say with Hannibal Lecter? And he's like eating somebody's face. Exactly. I'm not saying this kid's a sociopath. I'm just saying some people don't react the same way. And, and the other thing is, what is this distracting us from? That's what I hear everybody's saying. What is this distracting? We don't need any help to be distracted. There's a lot of things going on we shouldn't be distracted from, but we are. And we're distracted by a lot stupider things than this.
I think it's mighty convenient, though, with all the mainstream articles that have been going out there.
I mean, Ben Shapiro even commented on this. Very conservative Republican commentator that, religious and definitely I don't think believes in any of this. But even he's commenting on this, which shocked the hell out of me. I cannot believe how fast mainstream this has gone.
Exactly.
I'm a little suspicious. I understand that people are suspicious. We have every right to be. we have every right to be.
The hoax, I believe it. If it's the real thing, I'll believe it.
Yeah, I need more evidence.
I will not be surprised, but I don't trust it.
I'm glad George Knapp's on it. I always like
Yeah,
George
we
Knapp.
need people like that on there.
All right, so next up is another one that people are crying in the community are kind of crying foul as either BS or totally saying this guy's a hero. Is the whistleblower, which now is going to go to the House of Representatives for a hearing because of his claims. That's the picture of the kid, by the way, from the first article here. That's Article 1. Should have Article 2. Should be the whistleblower. Yeah, that guy. Okay, so I like the Body Language Ghost on YouTube has a great channel where she does people's body language and stuff. She's done Bob Lazar and stuff like that, and she does this guy, and I have to agree with her on this one. I'm not saying this guy's not telling the truth per se. I'm not saying that because I believe for a long time we've had our government's retrieve UFOs and everything. I think what everything this guy's saying is dead on. But tell me, Jamie, you watched it. I mean, something's not right about this guy.
When they asked him the questions at the beginning that are definite yeses, like his name and what his occupation was, yes, when he nodded his head. The other questions, when he said yes, he would shake his head like that.
Yeah. And then there's the whole putting his hands in front of his pee-pee.
I didn't think about that. I've never thought, but she might be right.
Yeah, Body Language goes, look how he puts his hands steepled in front of his penis.
Self-gratification.
Self-gratification. I'm like, that is a damn good point. So is he just getting a kick out of this because somebody pissed him off?
Or maybe he knows it's real.
He knows it's real, and he's coming out with it because he's pissed.
Lie just to get people to pay attention.
It's secondhand knowledge if you have to think about it, because this is just stuff he was told by others.
Hearsay, yeah.
So this is also just secondhand. He honestly does not have proof.
Yeah, I was thinking, what's the gain for for doing this? But maybe there's not. Maybe he's being told to do this. Maybe
right.
This is part of
like that's what I feel like. He's telling you all the truth, but in the end, he's like, yeah, I was given this assignment basically to be the person to out this, like to distract you from, I don't know, the crashing economy, the war in Ukraine going horribly, our president, basically being proven to be taking a $5 million bribe. I don't know. There's a lot of reasons to distract us.
Wanting us to fear the aliens and everything.
Or give our military-industrial complex, give the military-industrial complex more money, basically. Because now we got to fear aliens, because this thing in Ukraine's falling apart quick. Yeah. We need more money, for the military, right?
We need
that. So, yeah, they're going to have this whole whistleblower hearing. There are some good people, very few in Congress maybe, that might try to do something about this, but this is just a wag the dog, throw it in front of you, clown circus bull crap. I'm sorry, I don't trust these government insiders. I like Luis Elizondo. I do like him, and I know there's other people that don't. I do like him, and but this guy, I don't know. Gersh, his name is Gersh. I should have even just said his name, David Charles Gersh. Watch the interview of him. Tell me what you people think later. You can email me at paranormalsoupjbland@gmail.com. I'm definitely interested in your guys' thoughts. There's something not right about this guy. The information's right. I agree. I think, oh, yeah, definitely. We've got crash retrieval. But like I said, it's secondhand. He's not saying he's come out as like, I've seen the craft. He's not said that, did he? No, because he's only heard this from others. And I think this is maybe some childish. I think, personally, the reason he's doing the self-gratification move is because this is like, screw you guys. They did something to him. You know what I'm saying? So at this point, he's like, you guys aren't going to do anything to me. At the point, the cat's somewhat out of the bag anyways, but this is my middle finger to you. I feel like that's where the self-gratification smirk. He has a smirk in his face.
Yeah.
And the penal thing, I don't know. All right, we got to move on. We got so much. All right.
I'm dead today. I have a parent suicide. I'm just waiting for that.
Right? Yeah. Then that would just validate things a lot more. But I don't think that'll happen. All right. Strange man barges into family home, Florida man, while claiming to be a ghost. This is actually kind of sad. Brian McCaslin and his 2 teenage daughters had been sitting at a dinner table enjoying a meal when there was an unexpected knock on the door. As they walked out of the area where they were eating dinner, there was an individual in the living room or the front door area proceeding to advance into my house, he said. He was in the house. What happened next was even more bizarre. The man who claimed that he was, in fact, a ghost. He started to tell me that he was a ghost, and I shouldn't be able to see him, said McCaslin. He was shocked that I could see him. He thought he was walking around and nobody could see him. I could tell his behavior was not normal. What was your clue? I don't know. The next thing he knew, the uninvited guest had left the house and approached a crew of workers who had been cutting down a tree outside. Before anyone had a chance to react, the ghost had gotten into, I love they call him the ghost, had gotten into one of the trucks and locked the door. He said he doesn't have a home and he's going to make this truck his home, said McCaslin. It took a while, but the workers were eventually able to coax him out of the truck. Shortly afterwards, he ran away, all the while wearing nothing but a bathing suit. Efforts by local law enforcement to track the man down remain ongoing. I kept checking to see if there's an update. As far as I know, they have not found this man. It was obviously either suffering from a drug-induced hallucination or he's having mental issues. Or is it a ghost? I'm going to put this little nugget in your head. What if we just caught a ghost? Because there's a whole camera footage, and you can watch it NBC or ABC2, whatever that is, or NBC, I can't remember. Where you do see him, and he's physically there. He's going to the house. But what if he was a ghost? What if the dead are rising? Because he looks like he could have been a drowning victim. He's in a bathing suit, trunks. I don't know. Sure. And he shows up like, you could see me. He's been a ghost since the 1970s. He drowned. I don't know. That's where my imagination goes. It's like a total story now in my head. Like I could totally write. Yeah.
Drugs are bad.
All right, let's move on.
Hey, at least he wasn't eating nobody's face.
Because we're running out of time. We're running way out of time. Damn. Ghost or coincidence? DJ's death adds to haunted room's dark history. We're running out of time. I don't know if I can cover this whole thing. A former popular DJ was found dead in his haunted room, leaving a haunting note about ghosts and the previous deaths. Neighbors were unaware of his tragic incident, but were led to by a foul smell. Rescuers had to investigate. On June 4, Swang Fon Kusan, the Rian Rescue Foundation, local authorities, and police officers from Muan Rayon Police Station responded to a rented room after neighbors detected a foul stench. They discovered the body of Yam, 77 years old, a former well-known DJ known for his charming voice. The neighbors were unaware of the situation, estimated that he had been dead for 3 to 5 days. The rented room's diary and walls revealed Yam suffering from multiple illnesses and paranormal disturbances. His illnesses and spirits tormented him, rendering him unable to take care of himself. He left a note. There are ghosts in this room. Every night, the temple where I am staying is powerful. I don't know if they want me to make some merits for them. They come to torment me, my karma. No one believes me when I tell them. They think I'm ridiculous. I don't know what to do. I am extremely tormented. They are everywhere, day and night, interfering with everything. I will die a nervous wreck. Signed, Chaya Yam. Well, the thing is, 2 other people died in that same room. They find out. I have to cut the story short. 2 other people died, one by suicide and one unknown causes. And then this guy dies, and they don't say suicide, like of an illness. But yeah, he was writing stuff on his walls in a diary. He was telling people, nobody was listening, that this room was totally haunted. And now he's the 3rd death there. So just moving on. Weirdness continues.
Foul stench.
Mm-hmm. What's the next one? Oh, yeah, here we go. Satanist in the Woods. Yes, on Weird Wednesday, you guys covered this. Scatley clan witches, caught munching on deer carcass and bizarre security cam footage. I'm a Supernatural fan. My son's named Dean, if that tells you anything. And I always love Dean Winchester. He says, witches are, and don't take this offense, witches in the chat room. I'm just saying, because my wife's a witch, witches are nasty. The bodily fluids. A nurse and nature lover in Canada reportedly captured footage of what she said appeared to be 2 witches holding a carcass eating ritual with a camera she set up near her home. I don't know what the heck was up with that. Karina Stanhope, 36, of Powell River, British Columbia, told Kennedy News. It really freaked us out, and it's not something you see every day. After coming across a deer carcass on the garden in her property, Stanhope said she had kept the camera to surveil any animals that might take interest in the dead deer. Me and my grandpa put up a trail camera to see if we could see any animals. We got a bobcat, which was pretty cool, she said, adding that her 76-year-old grandfather, Bob, was horrified when he checked the footage and saw, and of course this her poor grandfather that gets to see this, saw what appeared to be scantily clad women chomping down on the carcass at night. I came the next day and Grandpa said he got naked people on the camera. I got naked people on the camera. And says, no, you didn't. Bull crap. So he showed me, she said. Stanhope noted to the news outlet that the apparent carcass eaters emerged about 10 minutes after sunset looking disheveled and like they were wearing wigs. You can't really tell from the photos, but the hoof was brought right up to her mouth, she said. I don't know if she was kissing it, smelling it, or eating it, but to touch a decaying carcass like that makes me feel sick, yeah. The amount of bacteria that must have been on there. Yeah, there's more pictures. I got, you can find the news article of this, but yeah. So that's happened.
Carcass eaters sounds like a good name for a heavy metal
like I said, there's no amount, I have so much stories of weirdness, and this just is add on top of it, including we got Chupacabra on video, supposedly. A peculiar piece of drone footage from Bolivia shows what appears to be a bipedal creature lurking in a field of crops. Some suspect the oddity could be an infamous chupacabra. Or is it a digicabra? Yeah, that's there.
Tractor impalement.
Yeah, is that a chupacabra? You see the drone footage of it and kind of flies by. I just took a screenshot of it, and that's about all you see. I don't know. Digicabra. Copyright Todd Reinhardt, resident asshole. I don't know. Is it a chupacabra? I don't know. But that's one of the stories I've seen going around. And now we got to get to the last one because we're almost out of time. What was the last one? Oh, yeah. So I was just talking about this, last Sunday when we didn't have the guests and had open lines remember, we were talking about our Bell and the Jonathan Reed call that turned out to be total BS, but how, he was in the woods and this alien encounter happens and kills his dog. How, terrifying that whole interview was to me before I knew it was BS. Now I just see this story come out, and it's kind of like in that same realm, and it breaks my heart. Everybody knows I went through not being able to keep a puppy this last week, and now I don't have a dog. I'm a little sad about this. And this story is a bit heart-wrenching. And the original article actually shows a picture of the dead dog, this guy's dog, and I would not show that. If I say this right, you say Guyanese man claims that his dog fell victim to a mysterious monster that slayed the animal before his very eyes. Peculiar incident reportedly occurred on Saturday evening as Stephen Dunbar in Amsterdam was out walking with his pet Pooch, which until then had served as a constant companion. As they strode along the night, the pair were suddenly confronted by what he later called a big black monster that seemed to be intent attacking the duo. Proving once and again that dogs are truly man's best friend, Amsterdam says that his pet put itself between him and the predator and sadly perished in the process. Strangely, despite standing right next to the gruesome scene as it unfolded, the animal's owner was unable to say what exactly was behind the attack. I'm not sure if it was a black panther, a chamenia, or evil spirit, Amsterdam recalled, but I am thankful to God and my dog for saving my life. After he shared the story on social media, several individuals echoed his suggestion that the predator of the attack could have been something supernatural, with many asserting that the area where the deadly encounter happened in was home to a werewolf or a similar evil spirit. To that end, they also argued that if Amsterdam's dog had been killed by a black panther, then it would have left with the downed animal, which was not the case in this instance. And like I said in the original article, I wasn't going to show it, I won't show it, is the actual picture of the dog. I'm like, oh, that's too much for me. Already the story breaks my heart. But we were talking about Art Bell and Jonathan Reed, and I saw this pop up, and I'm like, God, this reminds me of that. Now, Jonathan Reed was a total hoax on Art Bell, for anybody who didn't know. I'm pretty sure it's been proven very well that was a hoax. But it was a very compelling story, and it gets you at the heartstrings because of the dog, like this does. So, it's the sad, dogs will step in there and save your life. One day I will be a dog owner again, I hope. Not probably a dog that will save my life, probably a little one after this last experience. But that's it for the World Wide Web of Weird. Tonight's guest is James Szubski. If I butchered that, I'm sorry. He is he's a search and rescue EMT. He is the operating officer for Margie's outdoor store in the Columbia River Gorge. There is a lot of paranormal activity that happens there. It's pretty much a paranormal hotspot, and a lot of history there. We can get into of different things that have happened in that region tonight with our guest, James Szubski. We'll get that from him when we come back from the short commercial break.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hopson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Of the second kind, physical evidence of a UFO. Close encounters of the third kind, contact. From Steven Spielberg, the director of Jaws, comes one of the most ambitious and unusual films ever made. And what you will see has never been seen before. It's a cosmic mystery crossing what many scientists believe will be the next threshold of human experience. It is called Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It begins in an Indiana town and leads to one inescapable conclusion. We are not alone. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Certificate A. Now showing at the Odeon, Leicester Square.
The international chart-topping, Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest has been described as terrifyingly real, a must-read, shocking and chilling brilliance, genuinely worrying, utterly frightening. Don't read before bed. Described as one of the spookiest writers out there, best-selling author G.L. Davies presents Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest. The true paranormal account that is shocking the world. Dare you enter? Dare you read? Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, and wherever books are sold. Pray you never have to live there.
This is the sound of a space clock aboard a U.S. satellite 180 miles above the Earth. No one winds up this timepiece. It's powered by a tiny battery, a battery that delivers power for years without replacement. Now the same type of battery, the Duracell battery, can bring new reliability and long life to your battery-operated equipment. Radios, cameras, toys, all run far longer. Duracell batteries, the long-distance power cells, outlast any ordinary battery. The same type of battery that keeps space clocks running for years can bring long life to anything powered by batteries. Dura, as in durable. Cell, as in power cell. The Duracell battery, made by Mallory.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from Talkstream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Switch to DCS ranging.
240, nominal to profile.
We're in the pipe, 5 by 5.
Tonight on Paranormal Soup, our guest is James Szubski. James is the Chief Operating Officer of Margie's Outdoor Store located deep within the Columbia River Gorge in Washington State. In 2022, his store initiated a paranormal reporting program, which has now received well over 100 reports of strange activity in the gorge area. James is a former volunteer search and rescue EMT, a wildland firefighter, a mountain guide, and a highly decorated U.S. Army infantry veteran. He's earned a degree in communications from the Evergreen State College and has enjoyed a decades-long career in the field, working for companies like Wizards of the Coast, the makers of the Dungeons & Dragons and the Magic Gathering. He's currently volunteers his time as the leader of the Klickitat 8 Kitty Cat, or is that supposed to be Kitty Cat? Or Klickitat 8 Cat research team. I am truly honored to have him on the show tonight. This is seems like a very much paranormal hotspot. We'd love to get into some of the history, some cases there, and his experiences there. We will open up the phone lines later in the show, and especially if you're anybody who's experienced something in the Columbia River Gorge, please call in tonight. I'd love to hear your experience and share with our guest tonight, James, and hopefully he didn't butcher his name too bad here. We'll find out in just a second, but let's go ahead and get to our guest. All right, we have the guest in the waiting room. Let's bring him in. How you doing tonight, James? Don't hear you yet. It doesn't say he's muted. Uh-oh. Yeah, it doesn't say you're muted on our end, but I don't hear you. He might have to be changing his settings. Nope, don't hear you yet. Sometimes a restart or something might help or whatever if it's not picking up the right mic. Sometimes you got to back out and rejoin. Might be what you have to do. I don't know if you can hear me, hopefully. I don't know. Hopefully he's hearing me. Yeah, we don't hear you. Damn it.
I wonder if the volume's down on the headset.
I don't know.
Oh, no, that'd be the microphone.
Best
Yeah.
check there in that entire.
There. Oh, see, I thought that was him. That was you. Damn it.
Yep.
James, put your thumb up if you hear us. All right, I don't see a thumb up, so he does not hear us either. I don't hear him, and... All right, hold on. Let me see if I can find the right email, because I can call him.
I'd put on spark plug if I thought it'd help.
I know.
What movie's that from?
I'm calling him now.
Hello, this is James.
Hey, it's Jason. So you don't hear us, and we don't hear you.
All right. Well, I tested my mic. You know, I can. We can try it over the phone. Or
Wait, you can leave your video up, and I can keep you on the phone line here.
Let's try that.
Okay. Because we can see you perfectly. They all can hear you right now.
Great. I'll put these headphones aside.
All right.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for being on. It is an honor to have you on the show. I've never been to the Columbia River Gorge area, but I've always been interested in the phenomenon. I mean, I can think of a few things in the area. I don't know if you're familiar, with Kenneth Arnold from the very first UFO case.
Of course.
Is Mount Rainier in that area?
Yeah, so Kenneth Arnold, June 1947, he was flying a private plane near Mount Adams. And the picture behind me is the Columbia River Gorge. The mountain that's right above my head is Mount Adams. So famous for a lot of UFO sightings. Maybe you've heard of East Ranch.
Mm-hmm.
And well, that is just on the basically, 10 miles away from Mount Adams. Well, Kenneth Arnold, when he saw his 9 flying saucers back in 1947, they were flying from the north. They passed Mount Rainier and they went to Mount Adams. And so that's sort of where they ended up, as best as he could tell. So yeah, the UFO phenomenon, or I should say the flying saucer phenomenon, has been a part of the gorge histories from the beginning.
Do you remember the other one I was trying to think of when I was, just trying to remember that area and like stories that have come out of there, which I know there's probably a lot. I don't know if you ever listened to Art Bell back in the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You remember Mels Hole? That was like in Ellensburg, Washington. I don't know if that's near the gorge or not.
Ellensburg is a couple hundred miles north of us.
Okay.
It's a couple hour drive to get up there, but that's not quite what we would consider the gorge area.
Okay. I wondered.
Yeah. So just to paint a picture for your customer or your listeners. A couple of years ago, my mother-in-law passed away, and she left us a couple of businesses in the Columbia River Gorge area. And one of those was a store that didn't have a great format, so we converted it to an outdoor store. And it wasn't long before people started coming in and telling us strange stories. A lot of Bigfoot stories, a lot of UFO stories, stuff like that. And I found it really fascinating. So we put up a big sign in the window that said, "File your paranormal reports here." And in the past year and a half, we've had well over 150 reports come through the door. What
do you think is the majority of the reports? Like, is there one phenomenon that takes over all the others that seems to be the majority?
Sasquatch sightings are very, very common out here. Okay. And so that comprises a big part of it. We have a lot of UFO or UAP stories. And so those kind of fall into three different categories. We've got glowing orbs, which are seen high in the air and also at the forest level, so on the ground. We have what appear to be advanced craft. So these are the classic UFOs that seem to defy physics as we know them. And so we'll see triangular shaped craft and then sort of the classic cigar shaped or tic tac shaped kind of craft. And then we also have a lot of advanced military aircraft. So the Columbia River Gorge has got 14 hydroelectric plants on it. And it produces 44% of the United States' total hydroelectric power. And so, and it's a key transportation corridor. It's the only sea level passage through the Cascade Mountain Range. And so there's a ton of traffic that goes on the river through barges. There are rail lines on each side of the river, and there are two main interstates on either side of the river. And so this is a pretty tactically important place.
So an eye on, an eye is being kept on this by our government and military.
For sure.
Sake. Yeah.
And we've had people come into the store and report like black helicopters that don't make any sound when they flying through the canyons below radar, stuff like that. So those three, those are pretty big, those UFO and Sasquatch. We'll get into it, but we started getting reports about a year and a half ago about an enormous black panther creature that we call the Klickitat ape cat.
Klickitat, that's how you say it, Klickitat.
Yeah, so Klickitat County is where my stores are located. So just to paint the scene for your listeners, the Columbia River Gorge is the border between southern Washington and northern Oregon. My store is located approximately 60 miles east of Portland, Oregon, and we're right in the middle of the Cascade Mountains. And so if you can imagine, Cascade Mountains sort of run from British Columbia to Northern California. We've got peaks like Mount Rainier, which is 14,000 feet tall, Mount Adams, which is 12, Mount Shasta, Mount Hood, Mount St. Helens.
I mean, I can think of, like, as you're naming off these things, I can think of different cases and things that happen, around these areas. I mean, it's definitely, all those mountains are involved in a lot.
Exactly. And so the mountains form a rain shadow. So everything on the west side, so I live in Stevenson, which is in Skamania County, and we live in a rainforest that sees over 100 inches of rain a year. But then that mountain range forms a rain shadow, so everything to the east is desert, and it sees less than 10 inches of rain a year. And my store is sort of right at the borderland of the desert. And so I start my morning commute in the rainforest, and I drive 25 minutes, and I am getting close to the edge of the desert. So it is one of the most beautiful places in the world. And in the late 80s, it was designated as the country's first national scenic area. And it's because the gorge is so incredibly geologically unique. We've got soaring cliffs and rainforests and deserts. There are over 90 waterfalls here. Some of them are over 600 feet tall. We've got caves and, whitewater canyons. People paraglide here. There's a lot of windsurfing that goes on here. And so with this designation, the amount of development that can happen here has been severely curtailed so that the beautiful scenery can be maintained.
Right.
And so you've got this really interesting and diverse area. I don't know if you got into my introduction or my background at all, but, I was a infantry soldier, a wildland forest firefighter.
Thank you for your service.
My pleasure. A mountain guide and a search and rescue EMT. And so outdoor adventure is a big part of my life.
Right.
And something that I really enjoy. And to come, we were living up in Seattle at the time when my mother-in-law passed away. And so we moved down here, and to me, it was like, falling into heaven.
I bet.
Some of the coolest places in the world. And then we get here, and there is this literal paranormal soup that we're swimming in down here.
Like the plug.
And it's a couple of times a week, a new Scooby-Doo mystery walks through my door.
My wife would love that plug.
And, I have a 9-year-old daughter. She's one of my co-investigators.
Uh-huh.
And so
I got 11 and a 7-year-old. I got down at St. Augustine Lighthouse place, the lighthouse there, and now they're little paranormal investigators themselves. So yeah, I know that feeling.
Yeah, and so it's been just this really magical year and a half where, I go out because I love being out in this place, and we hear these stories and we follow up on them, and some of them are just astonishing. So we had talked about the Bigfoot, the UFO, this Klickitat ape cat. We also have had reports of humanoids, 2 to 3 feet tall. So that's one that throws me for a loop.
Right, like Hobbit people.
Yeah, hobbits. Some people have heard them as fae, fairy type folks.
Yeah.
We also, there's Native American legends that are.
Are they hairy or are they people looking like?
They look like people, bipedal people.
Good.
Some of them even wear clothing, which is weird. And again, these are the reports that we receive in the store. Part of what happened was, once we made this decision that we were going to invite people to file reports, I told my employees, we want to take these people seriously. We want to treat them with respect, like they're adults. We want to give them intelligent follow-up questions. We don't want to insert our beliefs into what they may have seen. We want to take in the data. And when we started, I really didn't know what I was going to do with it. But it just seemed like an incredibly interesting thing to do and a great way to, kind of really understand what's going on here. And then I think the final category of things that we hear about are portals. So these seem to be openings in the air that look like the background is different behind them than the background around them. Yeah. And so it is, we definitely over-index down here. And I tell you that I've had 150 reports, and that's really just the tip of the iceberg.
I bet.
There's not a lot of people that live here. The gorge is 80 miles long, the officially recognized scenic area.
What's the population of that area then?
It's about 70,000, and we have about 10 people per square mile.
Wow.
And I talked about the Cascade Mountains. They, from British Columbia to Northern California, cover about 80,000 square miles, and that is like the 10 smallest states in our country combined.
Right.
And the population of those states is like 4,000 people per square mile. Yeah. And so once you get out of this thin ribbon of humanity that is the river, like you are talking about some of the most rugged and inaccessible wilderness that there is.
If you ever need a retail store manager for your outfitter store, I'm your guy. I'll move. That's my kind of job. I work retail store management. I'm like, wish I had that as part of me. Like, would you like this outfitter, or or you want to tell me about your paranormal experience? Please tell me about your paranormal.
I always am trepidatious when I bring on new employees. I'm like, well, we do this kind of weird thing, and I, want to be sure that how we want to work it. And to a person, every one of them loves it. Like we haven't had someone come on that hasn't been excited about the paranormal part of the job, and it's kind of neat. So we have a written report form that people can file. A lot of folks just prefer us to tell us their stories, and then recently I put the forms online, so margiesoutdoorstore.com, and people can file them online.
Oh, nice.
But it's gotten to the point, I've got this 4-wheel drive FJ Cruiser, and I've decked it out with lights and cameras and all kinds of special gear. Because once you get out of the gorge itself and you're exploring the mountainous area, there are thousands of miles of dirt roads that are both in the rainforest and in the desert. And so this rig kind of is my go anywhere kind of thing. But it's got, decals and stickers on it. And so I'm kind of known in the community now. And now people will
come to you.
When I'm going to, like I'll get stopped in the grocery store and people will tell me about their Sasquatch encounter. Just maybe 2 days ago, I was getting the mail. No one has post office mailboxes. We all have to go to the post office to get our mail. And a couple stopped me. Oh, you're the Ape Cat guy. Well, we got to tell you, our friend saw it twice, but we saw UFOs and we were up in this. And so we get all kinds of reports. And I think, I try to come up with some theories about why this place is so over-indexing. It's really kind of insane. And I think it has something to do with the apocalyptic geology that created this place. Geologists believe that the river started flowing about 20 million years ago. And so you're talking about an energetic current that has been around for a very, very long time, longer than any human can possibly imagine. There has been this flow of energy basically draining the mountains and flowing out to the Pacific Ocean. The Columbia River is the largest river in North and South America that drains into the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah.
And so you've got this incredibly enduring energy movement going through here. And, you can talk about that in an esoteric woo-woo kind of sense, or you can talk about it in an engineering sense where, like I said, there are 14 dams in the Columbia River that produce that the energy has literally been transformed into a usable way. And now every single major tech company has a server farm out here. So Amazon, Microsoft, Google, you name it, every one of them is, even Facebook, is using the power of the gorge to fuel the information age. So in a very real sense, this energy is tangible, it's harnessable, and it can be used to make change in the world. So that's 20 million years ago. Then about 15 million years ago, these enormous fissures opened up in the earth. This is at the Idaho-Washington border area, so it's east of us. And a crack 100 miles long ruptured, and lava started pouring out of it in unbelievable quantities. We are talking about what they call flood basalts. And in some places, the flood basalts are 3 miles deep, like the rock that was left that was hardened. And it flowed through the ancient Columbia River Valley and all the way to the ocean. So it's a 300-mile lava flow. They estimate that it was 1,000 times Kilauea in terms of the volume of eruptive material that's coming out of here. And it is erupting periodically for millions of years. They say between 15 and 12 million years ago. And each of those flows has formed like a layer cake layer. But what's interesting is that each of those layers has got magnetically iron grains in it, basically.
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah, I was going to say that's going to leave an electromagnetic effect on the whole land base.
Well, not only that, the Earth's magnetic north has been wandering for the Earth's whole history. And so each time that lava flowed, it locked the magnetic grains in a certain orientation. And so each orientation, each layer, and there's 300 layers, have a different orientation of its magnetic material. And so it is, so you've got this, absolute apocalypse by fire. The amount of lava that came out over these 300 eruptive episodes, if you spread it out evenly over the United States, it would bury the United States 60 feet deep in lava. And so we're talking about things on a biblical, epic scale going on out here. So then about 2 to 5 million years ago, we start getting the mountains uplifting. So these are the Cascades. And you get, Rainier and Shasta and Adams and Hood and Mount St. Helens, which famously erupted in 1980. And even Hood was active in the 1800s. And so this is still very much a living, active landscape. And so you had this very strong horizontal flow of the river, and that's being pierced by this vertical energy flow of these mountains lifting up. And so already you're getting these crazy energetic eddies and currents and strange, it's not Kansas, right? It's a completely different kind of a place. Then your listeners are probably familiar with the work of Graham Hancock or Randall Carlson.
Right, you're going to talk about with the asteroids in Canada and that area, right? That would have melted.
Mm-hmm. So they often talk about the channeled scablands of eastern Washington. And so the mainstream theory is that there's a gigantic glacial lake larger than all of the Great Lakes combined in Missoula, Montana. It was trapped by an ice dam. That ice dam broke, and then it flooded eastern Washington in a truly biblical flood. The flood waters were estimated to be across eastern Washington 400 to 500 feet deep, some places much deeper than that. It was carrying icebergs and plucking off rock and completely scouring the landscape. And they estimate that the flow of the water was equal to all of the rivers on Earth combined.
Wow.
Times 10. Times 10.
Just strip the land.
Yeah, and so this is a flood of unbelievable proportions. There's a pretty strong theory with the Comet Impact Group that says perhaps the Canadian ice shelf, instead of this Missoula Lake, was flash melted when it was hit by comets.
Yeah.
We do know that these floods happened many times. They scoured eastern Washington, and they got held up at a place called Wallula Gap, which is basically the beginning of the gorge. And then from there, it rocketed down, and in the gorge, the depth of the water got to be over 1,000 feet deep.
Wow.
That is just an incomprehensible depth of water. Now, in the gorge, the river itself is rarely like the valley. It's probably between 1 mile and 5 miles wide. But then it instantly raises to, in some places, over 3,000 feet in less than half a mile. So you've got these stunningly huge, magnificent cliffs, and they've been stripped bare. And so you see when this lava cooled, it cooled in what they call columnar basalt. And so it's these giant hexagonal columns. Some of them are 100 feet tall. And maybe you've seen like the Giant's Causeway, the crazy kind of hexagonal stuff. That's exactly what's here, but it is all over the place. And so you've got this incredibly complicated story of electromagnetism going on out here.
Right.
And then that's combined with all the high power lines that are running through the area because of all the dams that are here. And I've seen studies. There's a guy, his name was Michael Persinger, and he created a thing they call the God helmet. Basically,
okay, that's the name sounds familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, he created this device that you could wear on your head, and it induced tiny, electromagnetic variances, and people had mystical experiences. Right. And, when I look at that information, to me, they're not having hallucinations. I think what's happening is that those electromagnetic variances are shifting their perception.
Have you ever seen John Hutchinson's work?
I'm not as familiar with his work.
With electromagnetic energy, I mean, he literally is making objects, not metal, okay, fly through the air. Because he's literally pumping his studio with all these different frequencies of electromagnetic high voltage energy,
Yeah. And so according to Persinger's work, I mean, we're talking about picoteslas, which are like a billionth or a trillionth of a Tesla, which is not a lot of energy to induce these states. And sometimes, he's had people who say they suddenly felt fearful or they suddenly felt overjoyed. And those are mirroring some of the reports that we've had. Now, again, I'm not a scientist. I'm an old adventurer. I'm barely a researcher. And so, I'm just trying to come up with some kind of theory because the stuff that's going on out here is, like I said, it is so common. Like, one of the most fun and beautiful things about it is that everybody down here knows somebody, has a neighbor or a family member, or they themselves have seen Sasquatch or a UFO, or, and we've only been here now a year and a half. So when my mother-in-law died, I moved down, and then for a year I was commuting between here and Seattle, and then we bought a house down here, and then my whole family moved down. And it was just, it was Memorial Day weekend, Monday night. I was out in the garage working on my car. Now, my house is about a mile north of the river. We sit at about an elevation of 800 feet. We're surrounded by forest. I think the biggest thing next to us, we've got like one of those bush plain sort of grass airports just past our neighborhood. And then after that, it is hundreds and hundreds of miles of Pacific Northwest wilderness. Oh, wow. And so I'm out there working. It's maybe 8:30, and I start hearing a large animal vocalization. All right. And so we've seen elk out here, and And this is the creature that I'm hearing. It's probably a couple hundred yards away from the house. And I'm thinking, is that like maybe an elk and rut bugling or something? So I'm listening. It's going on for about 15 minutes. And finally, I call my co-investigator out, my 9-year-old daughter. And I say, hey, come out here.
Yeah.
Tell me what you think. And she listens and she hears it. She's like, oh, I hear it too, Dad. I said, what do you think it is? She says, pretty sure it's a squatch, Dad. And so I was like, oh, well, it could be.
My kids would love it. They are so fascinated by Sasquatch. They would love it.
So we called my wife out, and she is listening, and she's like, I hear it too. And then when she's out there, we hear this big vocalization, and then we hear wood knocking, knock, 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 3 times in a different location from the vocalization.
Right.
And this happens about 4 or 5 times where we hear the vocalization and the wood knocking. And I was like, my flags are going up because I know that that's a classic characteristic of many Sasquatch encounters. And so after about an hour, we decided to call it a night and leave the garage. And we put my daughter to bed. And my wife and I quickly looked up elk bugling, and it sounded nothing like what we heard.
Right.
Elks have this whistle, sort of a high-pitched, almost a door hinge kind of a sound to it. And this had nothing like that. And so we looked up some alleged Bigfoot recordings, and it sounded exactly like that.
Was
and
it like a lot of like whooping or yelling?
Yeah, kind of like somebody shouting almost, but not using any words. And but it was an incredible moment of family fun. Like, it's part of what's going on out here. When like all the people out here are incredibly familiar with the wildlife. Like, it's we see bobcats on the way home from work. We see deer and elk and bear. And so the folks out here are really familiar. And some people hunt, and so like they are like, we know what we're looking at when we see it. And we know what a cougar looks like. We know what a black cat looks like. And we, so many folks have these reports, and particularly of Sasquatch. So Sasquatch in Skamania County, where my home is, was such a hotspot for Sasquatch encounters in the 60s that they actually passed legislation, and we were the first county in the country to make it illegal to hunt Bigfoot. And if you hunt and kill Bigfoot, you will go to jail and pay thousands of dollars in fines. It's on the books. And so what's fun is like, that's the culture here. Is it's kind of, Joe saw Sasquatch the other day, and they're not kidding, like, for real. And and I talked about how big this place is. And if you look like right over my where my phone is here, there's an area we call Broke Leg Barrows. It's an old lava bed, and basically, do you remember in Lord of the Rings when Gimli says, talking about Amon Wheely, says it's a labyrinth of razor sharp rocks?
Yeah.
Well, that is exactly what this place is, and it has been overgrown, and so it's got these scratchy trees and stuff in it. But compasses don't work there, and I am a expert, professionally trained land navigator, and I've been through jungles and forests and glaciers and deserts, you name it. I've been there, and I've done real work. And I look at this Broke Leg Barrows place, and it is impassable. And I can tell you that if something were in there are no trails that go through this place. It is the size of the island of Manhattan. So it's a giant area, right?
So and it's like hiding there.
And it's electromagnetically active for sure, because it's messing up compasses. And so, there are just so many places like that around here. There are these enormous lava tube caves.
I don't know if you have anything you want to share tonight. I do have this StreamYard does have share screen. Like if you're on computer,
I can share some stuff.
You can share your screen. It's under present.
Yeah, let me bring some stuff up here. So let's see, share the screen. And
there's a couple different ways you can do it, like share your whole window or just share a file.
Okay, so what we're looking at here, this is a picture taken from an area called Catherine Creek. Can you see that?
Yep.
All right. And we are looking east to the sunrise. The water's there in the middle. It's colored golden from the sun. That island is called Memeluse Island. known as the Island of the Dead because it's where the Native Americans interred their loved ones when they passed away, especially the most prestigious ones in their communities.
On an island?
Yeah.
Really?
And they never touched the bodies. Well, back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, there's a guy named James Hartley creeping around who was robbing Indian graves for artifacts. And he was actually chased off of this island by Native Americans in canoes. Anyway, he was all over the area. He eventually got the moniker in the newspapers at the time as the Ghoul King because of all of his grave robbing that he did. And well, the crazy thing is that his body was found with his arms, with his hands and feet tied to a canoe and a hazel stake through his heart. And so the local legend here says that if you mess with Native American artifacts, the curse of the Ghoul King, he is bound to seek retribution upon you.
Wow.
But yeah, but so in this picture, you can see there's a cliff back there on the right in this area. That's the Lyle Plateau, and on the other side is the Rowena Plateau. And so this is one of those areas where the great floods were constricted and they got really tall and they rocketed through there.
Right.
But this whole area, those cliffs are exposed layer upon layer upon layer of differently oriented magnetic material. And so, yeah, that's a picture of that area. Here's another picture from the top of Rowena Plateau. Oh, wow. Another picture of Memaloose Island with a rainbow there. Yeah. Here's Mount Hood, over 11,000 feet tall. We can see that.
Wait, yeah, I was going to say, oh, you just read my mind. Yes, yes, go back to that. It's the alien base in Mount Hood. Yes.
Yeah, so this is Mount Hood. So real interesting story about this. So ECETI Ranch is out there. And for your listeners who don't know, ECETI stands for Enlightened Contact with Extraterrestrial Intelligence. And James out there has had this facility going for a couple of decades now. People come from all over the world. They sit on his lawn with, lawn chairs, and they watch UFOs fly around Mount Adams all night.
I want to go.
Yeah. And a couple of years ago, someone caught a picture where they claimed to have seen a hangar door open on one of the sub-peaks of Mount Adams.
Was it Jimmy Church? I remember Jimmy Church, the radio host.
I think it might have been, yeah.
I think it was.
Yep. And so they were saying that things are flying in and out of this portal, this hangar door that opens and closes on Mount Adams. And so you don't always see it. And what's interesting is a guy came in our store and he said, well, I want to tell you about a portal I saw near Mount Adams. And I was like, and I made the mistake of guessing what it was. Oh, you mean the hangar door? He's like, no. This was something different. He said he saw it floating in the sky next to the mountain.
Yeah.
And it looked like an opening in space where it was a sort of a roundish opening. And the sky behind it looked different than the sky around it. And he said he looked at it and he thought there was something wrong with his eyes, and he rubbed his eyes and he, drove to a different location and he watched it as he was driving. And so, yeah, that was one of the, a portal, but it wasn't the physical portal. It was some type of opening. And again, these are the reports that we get. I don't try to explain what exactly they saw or the state of mind of the person who saw it. But right here in this original picture of the Lyle Gap right there, we've had reports of portals along the roadside there where people are driving just before you get into the Lyle Tunnel right there. And there's a portal sort of off on the riverside. So really crazy stuff. This is a picture now of Beacon Rock. Beacon Rock's in Skamania County, so it's closer to my home than my store, maybe 30 miles away. But it's the second largest monolith in the Northern Hemisphere. And we've had reports in this area of glowing orbs in the field in front of it.
This is a recreation, I assume, right?
Yes, this is a recreation. Yeah. Maybe not the best one, but it's a recreation. But I myself have seen orbs while driving on Highway 14. Yeah, which is the highway that's on the Washington side. We call it the wild Washington side. But yeah, and so it's very, very common to be while you're driving to see orbs. But not only that, let's see. A picture was sent into the store. This is of Underwood Mountain. And the picture's taken from 11 miles away. The person didn't know they had captured it until they were looking at it. And but this mountain is about 3 miles away from the store. And there was this object floating over the mountain. We did a little bit of enhancement on it. It has no rotors or wings, and just hanging out there.
It would have to be pretty big, though.
Yeah, it would have to be giant.
Giant, yeah.
Exactly. And so we have had a lot of reports like that, up and down the gorge. So many things. I think well, I've been jabbering on here. Do you want to get a word in, or?
No, I'm intently listening. I love this stuff so much you don't even know. I mean, my first my one maybe possible abduction experience happened in a gorge, but a different one called Red River Gorge, Kentucky. I'm fascinated with these kind of paranormal spots, especially when you get into the electromagnetic natural phenomenon that's there. Like I said, John Hutchinson, somebody I would love to interview one day, has done a lot of these experiments of high electromagnetic fields. And I mean, not only has he had stuff float and fly through his studio, he's had anomalous balls of light and other weird phenomenon. You know, have you watched the Skinwalker Ranch docuseries?
I've seen some Skinwalker Ranch stuff. I'm not sure if I've seen the one you're talking about.
Well, they have a mesa there, basically. That's like, you know, has unusual electromagnetic properties to it. You know, it's like something in the land, either something extra dimensional or extraterrestrial, could be using as a way to make a portal or to come through. What was the rock? What was that?
Oh, this is on top of that Lyle Plateau area. And so this is just,
I'm interested in the rock, the petroglyph with the rock. That was cracked.
Okay.
Because it's never a good thing when you have an ancient artifact and it's cracked open.
Exactly. So let me get you to there. So, all right, we have a mesa here. It's called Horse Thief Butte. And so from the road, it looks like a classic desert mesa, you know, so it's got these tall cliff sides and a flat top. But when you get into it, it is riddled with a labyrinth of hidden passageways and caves, and amphitheaters. There are petroglyphs on the walls, and it's obviously a place of great spiritual power. Like,
what would it? Sorry, I used to be into archaeology. Who was this made by, for one? Do we know?
So we talk about the Wishram Indians, the Klickitat Indians. There's a number of tribes in the area. They've been sort of confederated into the Yakima Nation at this point. It's a pretty complicated tale, but there's definitely a whole tradition. Obviously, the river was, well, let me put it to this way. One of the oldest skeletons ever found in North America, the most complete skeleton, was called Kennewick Man, and that's happened here in the gorge. And so so Kennewick Man is from this area. And so we've had inhabitation here for at least 10,000 years, probably longer.
Right.
Now, what you're looking at here is a petroglyph. It's got a cat-like face, actually a couple of them on this rock, and there are wavy lines like water underneath it. And then there's a crack that runs directly through the wavy water lines. So this petroglyph can be found at Horse Thief Lake, which is right near Horse Thief Butte. And it's one of the places where Lewis and Clark stopped. Now, in this area, like there's a parking area, and then there's probably 30 or 40 petroglyphs right there. And the reason why is when they put in one of the dams, they recognized they were going to flood a sacred canyon that had all these petroglyphs in it. So they took those petroglyphs and they stored them actually in the dam for many years. And then
That's
I think
not
in
how it works.
Yep. In 2006, they brought them back out and they put them here so people could check them out. But this crack is really kind of crazy. Now, all right, so I'm going to go into this whole Klickitat ape cat because this petroglyph is a really interesting part of that story. So it wasn't long after we put up that sign asking people to file their paranormal reports at Margie's Outdoor Store that a guy walked through the door. And he was a friend of my mother-in-law. She had helped his family through a medical thing. She was a pharmacist registered in 4 states. She knew what she was talking about. Anyway, she helped him out. And so we had this kind of connection. Still, it took him 45 minutes to tell me his story. He said that he was orienteering up near Buck Creek. So again, this is very close to where that UFO was over the mountain, 3-4 miles away from the store. And orienteering is using map and compass to navigate around for entertainment purposes. And so he said his compass started, the needle started twisting while it was in his hand. Like normally, if you're holding your compass, it doesn't move. Well, it started moving on him. And he looked up, and there across the creek was this enormous black cat creature. And so he described it as this really large, really muscular cat with long black fur and a long black tail. And he said that the creature stood 4 to 5 feet tall at the shoulder. So in the back of my mind at that moment, I said, wait a minute, there's a couple of flags going up here. Because number one, of course, we have cougar out here. But cougar are always either tan, or when they express their melanin, they go to a reddish color.
Right.
There's no wildlife biologist that recognizes a black cougar. Some say it's genetically impossible. So he's talking about a black cat, which shouldn't exist. And then he said it's 4 to 5 feet tall at the shoulder. So a typical cougar is 2 feet tall at the shoulder.
And long fur too, you said.
Yeah, 3 to 4 inches long fur.
Yeah, that's typical.
And so the next largest living cat, the biggest cat on the planet is a tiger. And tigers only get to maybe be 3 feet tall at the shoulder. But this thing that he said was 4 feet tall at the shoulder. And so, and I was listening like, oh, this is really kind of a fascinating story. And then he said, and the strangest thing, James, was that it had a face that looked like a monkey. And I said, what? Yeah. And so, of course, we are respectful as we're taking this information, no matter how crazy it sounds. Like you can't jump in and say you're insane. And he said, yeah, its face was flattened like a monkey's, and it had intelligent ape-like eyes and other primate features. And I thought, wow, that is really interesting. And so we talked a little bit more about that. He tried to explain what he meant. The best as I can make out, like the difference between a German Shepherd and a pug, like it's still a cat, but one's got a much flatter face.
Or a dog, you mean?
Yeah, still a dog, but one's got a much, like that's the way I imagine it to be.
That's what I was
But again, he was adamant that it looked like a cross between a monkey and a cat. And so I was like, wow, that's pretty interesting. I've never heard of anything like that. The next day, I went and told my employees, and one of them, a very honest young lady, she started shaking. And I said, Missy, what's going on? She's like, James, I've seen that thing myself. I was driving down Klickitat Canyon at dawn, and it was walking close to the side of the road. And so if you look at the map behind me, so Mount Adams is right above my head, and then Klickitat Canyon is one of 2 canyons that come off the mountain and flow into the Columbia River. The other one is the White Salmon River, and that's very close to where the other Sasquatch sightings were happening. So we've got these flows coming off of Mount Adams into the Columbia. So her sighting was out there. She said she watched it walking near the road. It walked into a small patch of tall grass. She stopped the car, waited for it to emerge out of the small patch of grass, and it never did. Eventually, she got out of her car and was peeking around. She didn't get too close to it, but she said there's no sign of the thing. And she wondered if she should warn the neighbors and the households that were nearby. And she said, oh, they're going to think I'm crazy for telling them this big black cat. Well, she did tell her family. They said, oh, you probably saw a cow. Now, imagine how, this is a grown woman, right? Yeah. And, imagine if you saw a red Ferrari, and you said, hey, dudes, I saw a red Ferrari driving down the street. And someone said, well, red Ferraris are pretty rare. You probably saw a red minivan. You'd be like, no, I know exactly what the difference is. And so it's one of those things where she was certain of what she saw, but she gave up talking about it because she was being ridiculed for it. Like it was being told that you're silly or stupid or you don't know what you're looking at. You're a grown woman and you don't know the difference between a cat and a cow. And so it was at that moment that I realized, well, this is something worth investigating. And so the store has got a radio advertising budget, and so we started asking people if they'd seen the cat to come in and file a report. And I put a bunch of flyers up at the local trailheads, and sure enough, people started coming in and telling us their stories. And so, like I said, we've received over 60 reports. Some of them are from senior law enforcement officials. The stories go back about 30 or 40 years. Everyone describes this enormous black cat with a long black tail. About half of those folks say that the creature is 4 to 5 feet tall to shoulder. There have been stories of it jumping across a road at night, and when its body is stretched out, it is as long as the 2-lane road.
Oh, geez.
Right? So it's enormous.
Big kitty.
Yeah. In none of these reports have we had any hostile encounters. So in the 30 years of reporting, no one has had a negative interaction.
It's just seeing it go by, or seeing it in a field, or seeing it, at a distance or something, right?
Some people, we've had hunters see it through their scope, and they decided not to shoot because they thought it was an endangered creature. They didn't want to get in trouble.
Or they want to piss it off.
Yeah, exactly. There's another guy who said that he saw it with a kitten in his driveway. And so, it could be any number of things. It could be a mutant cougar, just not yet recognized by science. And for sure, there are so many, geologically and geographically isolated places here in the gorge that, there could be populations. We have many endemic species of plants and animals down here to begin with. And so it's not impossible that that could be going on. Started doing research. It turns out that basically every culture in the world, when they talk about supernatural black panthers, they see them as protector creatures. And so the one that was really interesting to me was that in the Great Lakes area, the Native Americans have traditions about a race of supernatural panther protectors. These are called the Mashepashu. And the one account that I read said that they have the appearance of a enormous black panther with the face of a man. And I thought, that's
right up there. Yep, that's what I was thinking about.
Yeah, interesting. So when the Native American traditions talk about something being underwater or underground or in the sky realm, they're talking about something that has a foot both in the spirit world and in the physical world. It's a creature that seems to be able to cross the veil, so to speak, and be in both worlds at the same time. And so one other report that we got, a guy was working again up near Buck Creek, and he said he saw this big cat out there. He even caught a little video of it. It's on our website.
Really?
Yeah. Now, don't get excited, because really all it is the creature's eyes blinking, and there's some vocalizations on there. And so completely inconclusive. I don't want to get everyone the impression that...
Well, I'm just interested to see it. You said you can see its eyes blinking, there's a lot there. I want to see it in the eyes if this thing's got a human-like face. That's what I'm curious about this whole thing.
Well, to me, what was fascinating about his account was that he said as soon as he started filming, the batteries in his phone and his headlamp went dead simultaneously. And so, again, electromagnetic effects. And so when I look at those petroglyphs, I think that's interesting, that there's representations of cats that have water lines under them, and then the water line has been severed. So, if you're looking at symbolism, as above, so below, the notion that whatever bound it to that rock or to that water part of the rock,
it could be
has been
to hold a entity trapped or imprisoned or under control, and now it's loose.
Again, theories, fun, and I love them all. Like I said, I'm not a scientist. I'm not even a very good researcher. But I'll be going along, and it'll be months between hearing stories about it having an ape-like face, right? And to be sure, out of those 60 reports, only 5 or 6 of them describe that component.
Right.
So that's either a shape-shifting thing, it's a reporting error, or it's two different types of creatures altogether. We don't know.
That's the Skinwalker. We got to go to commercial break here soon, but like Skinwalker Ranch, it has the whole shape-shifting theme with the Native American curse, basically, of a creature that could shape-shift. And it makes you wonder, when we're talking about these scenes, I don't know, when you were going through those photos, and it caught my eye when I saw the petroglyph and the crack.
Yeah.
Because to me, it's when you get to the Native American things, they believed in these creatures that existed that could transverse both worlds and that could shapeshift and be different things. And I've always had a speculation in the paranormal. I've had my shadow person experience. But I felt it could have manifested as anything. It wanted fear. It's that earliest man, in our primitives, in our ancient history, we would react to things with fear, like an animal in the forest. Okay. And if something's out there that exists in another realm and feeds off our energy like fear or gets its attention through our fear, it's going to mimic that ancient survival instinct and appear as a beast in the field. Like I said, the Skinwalker Ranch thing started with a beast in the field kind of thing. It went after their cattle. Bell Ridge started with a beast in the field. You know, and all hot spots basically.
Well, I'm so fascinated with what you're saying. You know, I did a little research, and it turns out that the oldest representation of human imaginative thought, you know, we've got the cave paintings in Europe, Lascaux, France, etc.
Right.
But the oldest figurine is actually a human-cat hybrid. It is a man with the head of a like a cave lion.
Yeah.
And so from the very first moments that we are humans and recording our thoughts, we are talking about impossible creatures. And it is rife in the cave art of human-animal hybrids. They call them therianthropes.
Well, you know what I always thought about that? Because I've known that, is that the reason we see this in the earliest cave depictions is like if you were an early ancestor and you're trying to tell your tribe or your people, I saw this thing that nobody else is seeing, what are you going to do? You're going to go up and draw it on the wall and say, hey, I saw that. That'd be the reason to draw it.
Well, you wanted to go to a commercial break. I won't keep you from that. And then we can come back and I'll tell you the fun theory about how this may actually have come from a top secret government nuclear facility just upstream.
See, I was wondering what we have government installation wise there, military and research and what's up there, you know, like
there's a doozy. There's a part of the Manhattan Project and a giant part of the Manhattan Project.
Really?
So we'll get into that after the break.
Yeah. We're going to go to commercial break here in a second. And we're going to also, you're cool with open phone lines. Now, I have you on this phone line, so that shuts down kind of some of the phone lines, but it does leave a couple open. Tonight, guys, if I hang up on you, try a different line, because I do have James on one. I think that'll take up the Google number, if I remember which one that is. But I think the 219-230-4444 should work tonight. And, of course, Skype ID OOJ Bland 00 should be the other way to call in tonight, guys. Join the conversation. If you live in this area and you've experienced something, please call in and share. I want to hear it. Or if you've experienced anything similar and it's not even in the Columbia River Gorge, share with us that tonight. But we will open up the phone lines. We are going to go to our commercial break, and we will be back with our guests. And how do you see your last name? I don't think I ever got that out of you because we had a problem.
It's pronounced Szubski.
Szubski.
There you go.
I butchered it probably tonight, but James Szubski. He is a search and rescue EMT. He is the owner of Margie's Outdoor Store right in the Columbia River Gorge. He's been getting these paranormal encounters from people in this area. It seems like a huge paranormal hotspot. A lot of history there. When we come back from the short commercial break, we'll take your calls. All right, guys, we'll be right back.
Conducting an experiment into the combined effects of sensory deprivation and hallucinatory drugs. The subject of the experiment is himself, and the experiment is out of control. Ken Russell's Altered States, a film that must not be missed, is in the West End now. Altered States, Certificate X.
Do you wish for more paranormal and spiritual content? The Paranormal Chronicles magazine is a free digital magazine crammed with the very best in paranormal and spiritual articles and features. No sign-up, no subscription, just free reading and knowledge for you. Read today at www.paranormalchronicles.com/magazine.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Paranation Magazine is a new paranormal magazine based out of Denver, Colorado. Our goal isn't just to give you the best paranormal content out there, but to promote paranormal unity. We're doing this by giving everyone an opportunity to tell their stories and to share their experiences. For more information, follow us on Facebook at Paranation Magazine and soon, paranationmag.com.
I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is the extraordinary travels of a young, alone, and broke psychic in the highly anticipated new book from internationally renowned psychic, medium, medical intuitive, and best-selling author Sherry Dillard. Critics have described I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like as an engrossing memoir, an empowering story of how a broken girl came to accept her psychic gift, a refreshing and fun read. I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is available through Amazon, Kindle, Barnes & Noble, and wherever books are sold.
Wrote Spirits of the Dead with a pen dipped in warm blood. You will see the ultimate in terror with this important all-star cast. Brigitte Bardot, Alain Delon, Jane Fonda, Terence Stamp, and Peter Fonda in Edgar Allan Poe's Spirits of the Dead. Only Poe's demented genius could bring to the screen such horror and evil. Spirits of the Dead stars Brigitte Bardot, Alain Delon, Jane Fonda, Terence Stamp, and Peter Fonda. Directed by three masters of the cinema, Federico Fellini, Louis Malle, and Roger Vadim. Spirits of the Dead is an adventure in terror beyond your wildest nightmares. Spirits of the Dead in color is rated R.
Okay. So, does anybody want to play Parcheesi? Okay, who brought the dog?
You're listening to Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. The call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419 or by Skype caller ID OOJBland00 or JBland Paranormal Soup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
Tonight's guest is James Szubski. I have a whole list to trying to get that right. He is the owner of our operating officer of Margie's Outdoor Store in the Columbia River Gorge. We're talking about all these paranormal experiences that have been reported to them at this store. They put out an ad telling people they could come there and give them their experiences. And they've documented over 100 experiences in this area, and I'm sure there's a ton more. It's rife with history, activity, from UFOs to Bigfoot to a black cat with a face of an ape. I mean, just a Disney World of the paranormal, right? I totally got to go on vacation there. But we will now open up the phone lines. Let me make sure I get those phone lines open for you guys. Now, I do have a guest tonight due to technical difficulties on. I'm trying to get my phone lines open here. On one of the phone lines, but I believe you should be able to call in the 219-230-4444 or on Skype ID OOJBland00. I believe those are the two ways that we can take your calls tonight. Love to hear from you if you've had similar experiences, especially if they're from the Columbia River Gorge. But let's go ahead and get back to our guest. All right. Well, I got to put the guest back up on here. Thank you for hanging in there with us, James.
Stage.
I have to add you back to stream.
There you go.
Can
you hear me?
There you go. I hear you. I
All
don't
right,
hear
so
you
I
on
got-
the stream, but I hear you on the phone, so it works.
All right. Well, Okay, I've got the phone actually muted, so if you can hear me, that means.
Oh, then I don't hear you through there. Then I hear you on here. Okay,
I'm
gonna
gonna
hang up.
the phone. There you go. Can you hear me now?
Oh, then okay, that's awesome. That opens up another phone line set. So then
There we
all
go.
lines are open.
Yeah. So, yeah, really interesting story about this nuclear facility. So about 100 miles northeast of here, as the crow flies, is the Hanford nuclear site. And it was the place, so when they opened up the Manhattan Project, of course, they were designing the bomb in Los Alamos, but they needed some place to actually create the plutonium. And just to be clear, we're talking about creating an element that doesn't exist in nature on an industrial scale. So they are literally toying with the fabric of reality out there. And so it was a huge facility. Eventually, towards the end of the Cold War, it had over 9 nuclear reactors running there full time. They produced the plutonium that was used in the very first atomic bomb that was ever detonated in the Trinity test, and then the bomb that was in Nagasaki, and then enough plutonium to fuel 60,000 more nuclear weapons. They called it the Apocalypse Factory. It was one of our most important secret sites, and also a site of phenomenal amount of research was going on there, right? And from day one, they had an animal testing program. And of course, everyone knows that we were worried about the Nazis unlocking the secret of the atom and creating the bomb. But the Nazis were, big into all kinds of animal experimentation and creating super
genetic
soldiers,
research.
super animals. And in the 1940s,
Before they knew about it.
we knew that radiation could induce mutations, and we didn't know much more than that. So the guy that they got to run the animal testing program at Hanford was a guy from the University of Washington. His name was Dr. Donaldson. And his only academic achievement before that was he had created a super animal through special breeding programs and nutrition. It's called the Donaldson super trout. And it was this fish that was like 8 times stronger and larger than a normal trout. It reached sexual maturity in half the time. It could swim in salt water and fresh water. And it's a super
destroy an
survivable
ecosystem.
Fish. Yeah. So these fish are still alive today, but he's the guy they put in charge of this. Well, so we win the war, right? He winds up going down to the South Pacific with like Bikini Atoll and the disastrous Castle Bravo test and all the craziness that went down there. And a new guy comes in named Bill Bear. And I've been able to get a hold of some of Bill Bear's oral histories. And he talks about how they were experimenting on apex predators at Hanford and how they escaped. And the way that he tells the story is that they had between 20 and 50 alligators down there, that they were, these apex predators that they were irradiating. He even shows pictures of the device they used to irradiate the alligators with an alligator in it. And one night, 6 of these experimental apex predators outsmarted the scientists and escaped into the Columbia River. And for 6 months, they have these army hunting teams going out there, and they are trying to track down these gators, and they only ever caught 6 of them. And there have been stories of alligators in the gorge ever since. Even this guy, so this whole program was like late 50s is when it started. And he's getting calls in the 80s about alligators in the river. We've had reports of kayaks being tugged underwater, and the people just got out of there, and they never saw what it was that was pulling them under. But so we've had these kind of crazy stories, and we do know that it's 100% historically verified fact that they were experimenting on apex predators at Hanford. Now, so right now, a quarter of the U.S. nuclear stockpile is guarded by dolphins. And the reason is that if you are looking at sonar, you can't tell the difference between a tuna, a Soviet spy in scuba gear, or a sea lion. And so they've trained dolphins since the 1950s to be sentinels for our country's most sensitive nuclear sites. And so the story is that the dolphins have got some kind of special apparatus they wear in their snout. That's kind of like a little mini harpoon. They dive and they tag the diver with that harpoon and inflates a balloon, brings the diver to the surface, and they're able to capture him, right? Well, Hanford is by far one of our most important secret sites. Through the Cold War, it's producing plutonium. It is the backbone of our nuclear program. There's all kinds of high-energy physics experimentation going on out there. They had 4 Nike missile launch sites, which are nuclear-tipped surface-to-air missiles designed to take out Soviet bombers by detonating nuclear weapons over U.S. populations. So, like, crazy, crazy stuff. And if you're a Cold Warrior and you're trying to figure out how in the heck are we going to guard literally 90 miles of river coastline, because Hanford is sort of in this U of the river. What are you going to do? You can't bring in dolphins because dolphins operate in salt water and the river's freshwater, right?
Dolphins with laser beams.
Exactly.
Thinking.
So
yeah.
if you're a cold warrior and you're thinking out of the box, you're like, okay, what is the world's greatest riverine hunter? It's a jaguar. And a black jaguar is able to hold its breath for 15 minutes. It can eat underwater. It can kill caiman alligators with a single bite to the back of the head. Pound for pound, they're the strongest of the big cats on the planet alive today. They have night vision that's 6 times better than a human, and they always instinctively drag their prey to shore. And so this is the perfect constellation of traits that you'd want in a sentinel creature, right? And so if you were trying to guard, and trust me, as an infantry soldier, I've had to guard military installations before. It is really, really hard to guard 90 miles of river running through a desert. Like, that is a nearly impossible task.
It's a lot of territory, yeah.
We know that they had dogs. We know that they had literal cowboys out there, dudes riding on horses. But we think what they were doing is they had a jaguar sentinel program, probably mixed breeding. Jaguars are notoriously the hardest to train of the big cats. Lions,
I was going to say, it wouldn't be easy to train something like that to do what you needed, though.
Yeah. And in Canada right now, there's a jag lion. So there was a lion and a jaguar living in captivity together. They loved each other very much, and they had 2 offspring. And one of them is
so it's like the liger.
black cat. Yeah,
is
it's
it?
called a jag lion.
I didn't know about that. Really?
And,
wow, I'm going to look that up.
You know, and one of the things that the Nazis had done was they had actually resurrected an extinct Ice Age creature. This was a creature called the aurochs, and it was a hyper-aggressive, gigantic bull-type creature. And they had brought this creature back to life and populated a forest in Europe with it. And so, of course, I had mentioned that the Panthera atrox is the only creature that matches, from the fossil record, that matches how big the cat that people are seeing here in Klickitat County today is. That's Panthera atrox, Ice Age creature, supposedly gone extinct 9 to 10,000 years ago, also known as the American lion. It was the largest cat to have ever lived. Interestingly, it had the largest brain cavity, both by total volume and as a comparison to its total body weight, of any cat that had ever existed. And so it may have been that they did some kind of thing where they brought something back, whatever. It may have been just, radiological.
Wouldn't put it past them.
And the thing about it is it doesn't have to have worked, right? For this theory to make sense. Like, there was a thing called Project Headgear where they were trying to turn sharks into radio-controlled torpedoes by putting these like electroshock helmets on them.
True story.
And they spent $8 million in 8 years on that thing, and in the end, they concluded this was a bad idea.
We tried to do it with stray cats in near what was it in Germany?
You've done your research.
Yeah.
And so what we think happened was, just like the gators, they were experimenting on apex predators out at Hanford, possibly as a sentinel program.
Right.
Then those creatures, just like the gators, outsmarted the scientists, escaped from their captivity. And, if you look at the map behind me, you can see that if you go north, east, or south, you head deeper into desert. If you head west into Klickitat County, you're going to run into all this available habitat and food sources and everything else. And so we don't know. Again, I'm trying to come up with theories as to why we would be seeing, if we don't invoke some type of paranormal.
I mean, would you think, with the whole description of the face being ape-like, that this is like a chimera, something that's been hybrid between a cat and a monkey or something else? I mean, that's the question.
Yeah, we don't know. And it's interesting that there's only a handful of reports with that. What's interesting, I mentioned the ESETI Ranch. Their logo has a lion in it because reportedly one of the races they're in contact with is a race of feline humanoids. I mean, so there are so many different vectors. And honestly, that's what makes this a ton of fun. Like, these people come to my store, they tell us these reports, and, I'm under no, scientific obligation, and so it's really just investigating and, pulling on different threads and seeing where it leads. And there are many theories, and honestly, I couldn't tell you which one is the best. So it's, like I said,
it's an alien's pet, and it needs to let it out for a dump.
There have been stories of big black cats associated with UFOs.
That's what I'm saying. what people are saying, it seems so brief and small encounters, and then it disappears. You know, this is either possibly something that's a walk-in, you know, from another dimension or time frame, or it's, you know, aliens like, hey, honey, we need to get down to Earth. We need to let our cat or whatever this thing is, some alien cat thing out. You know, let it go for a stroll.
It's, you know, anything's on the table at this point. I mean, we have had, you know, we haven't even had a chance to talk about, you know, some of the small humanoids and, you know, how.
Yeah, I want to talk about that.
Do you have callers that we want to get to, or?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I totally have. So this is how much you've sucked me in. I've had a caller. He's a loyal caller because he's still hanging on there because he's one of my first callers ever. Zach. Sorry, Zach. I totally did forget about you. I'm so sorry, Zach. I got so sucked into this. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good, brother.
The guest had to remind me. It was good. I had a great birthday. Wearing my X-Wing shirt. It was a present from my boys.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, no, I was thinking about, you know, the big cats being a pet for aliens, and I can only just imagine some gray or like alien going.
Make sure you go out there and pick up its poop. Don't let the humans are going to want that poop.
Actually, that leads into my first question that I have. Hey, James,
poop?
It's very nice to meet you, sir. Goes along those lines. So my first question goes really to just a lot of the reports of like the big cats and Bigfoot. Based on your research and others within the area, have they found some kind of evidence linking these creatures over to this particular area? Like, have they found feces, footprints? Have there been any documentation of that you're aware of?
So for the cat, we haven't had a lot of that, and it would be easy to mistake anything that cat is doing for a cougar, right? And so if someone's livestock was getting mauled, it would likely be attributed to a cougar. I don't think anyone does a forensic analysis to determine how big the cat paws were. So we haven't heard about anything like that. Now, for the Sasquatch stuff, we've had folks bring in actual hair samples into the store. And one gentleman sees them frequently. He believes that there is sort of a pinch point of their travel through his property. And so he has seen them on numerous occasions. There have been, for Bigfoot, lots of castings. There's the Skookum Field cast, which is probably, I want to say 30 miles northwest of my store, sort of up this part of the map. Anyway, this is a casting that apparently was a Sasquatch laying down, and it was so detailed they saw the hair and the handprints. You know, like even the fingerprints were into it, and so it's considered one of the most one of the best castings ever taken because it's not just of the feet; it's the creature like basically laying on its side.
Yeah.
And so the North American Bigfoot Museum, which is located in Boring, Oregon, maybe about 40 miles away from here. It's closer to Portland, so probably 50 miles away from here. Anyway, they've done research in my hometown. So, you know, I relayed that story of hearing creatures. And the thing that sort of really set me off is they've got a documentary on loop at the museum. Cliff has done a lot of research, including investigating in Stevenson. And one of the part of that report, part of that whole documentary they produced was that there was a guy shouting in someone's backyard, or like in a ravine near a guy's backyard. And as they did a little bit more investigation, the guys said, oh, well, maybe it wasn't a guy. And so the question is what kind of evidence is there? And right now, a lot of evidence for Bigfoot, not a lot of evidence for the cat. We've really only been at it for a little over a year. And part of the reason why I'm going on these doing these interviews is I'm inviting people who are maybe more sophisticated researchers than I am to come on down and see for themselves whether those people are more scientifically oriented or more empathically oriented. I think that this is something that deserves some deeper analysis and a little bit more rigorous research.
Okay, cool. And my second question, it goes on the topic of portals. So I do know that you did mention about an incident where there was like a portal that was over in the sky, but yet the sky that was deep inside the portal looked very different than the sky that was around it. But my question is, have you gotten other reports too of maybe different types of portals, maybe some that maybe had a different shape over to them, or some that were on the ground, or maybe some that were like the head, there was a hanger on the side of the mountain. That's another example. Have you gotten any other kind of reports like that? And do you think that it's they're all connected in some way, or maybe they're just different types of portals used by different beings to cross over into our dimension, if you want to call it that?
So the portal reports, what's really interesting about the reports that we get is people will come in and it's a really incomplete story. I saw a portal on the side of the road. We drove by it. I didn't know what to make of it, but I thought you should hear about it, right? And so there's a couple parts to your question. One was, have people seen portals in other places other than just in the sky? And the answer is yes. Over by the Lyle Tunnel, we've had reports of portals out there. Now, what's interesting is, so in that area, which is kind of right where my microphone is located on the map behind me, there are places where people have intuitive feelings that they have slipped into another place. So there's no like dramatic portal opening that you step through or anything like that. It's sort of like I've had a sense that that I was in a different realm, so to speak, is the report. We've also had folks report that they've had a time loss. So they've been in an area, they believe that they've only been there for a few minutes, and it turns out that they've been there for hours. Ooh. And now myself, so we looked at a couple of pictures here, and I'm going to bring them back up again so people get a sense of what we're talking about. Okay. But so in the right by that Lyle Tunnel that I was describing just a second ago, there is, let's see. So here in this picture, we're looking at these cliffs right here, and sort of pointing towards the left-hand side of the gorge there. And that's very close to where this picture is taken of the rocks. Now, this is the Lyle Plateau. And there, I have had personally the feeling that when I'm standing up on that plateau, they're sort of like these grassy fields interrupted with these really interesting rock formations. Yeah. That the grass was rippling in the wind, but the wind had the feeling that it was not from here. Very difficult to describe. This is more of an intuitive internal feeling. Yeah. And like, you know, if you saw grass blowing, you're not going to, there's no conclusive proof that you've, you know, entered another realm or something like that. But there's the very clear intuitive sense that, wow, I have entered another realm. When we look at some of the caves, I'm going to show you a place called, this is Natural Bridges area. This is an old lava tube. Parts of the ceiling have collapsed, and so it's created a mile-long trench that's broken up by probably 5 or 6 different tunnels. This picture's taken in the fall. But we've had people enter these caves and also report lost time going into these subterranean wells. This is a picture of what that canyon, the collapsed bed, looks like. So the answer to the question, do they seem connected? I don't have an answer for you on that one. Or do they come in different shapes and sizes? Well, it seems that some of our cave systems in the area have the ability to alter time. Perception of time. Yeah. And then there are other places where just being there, it's sort of like if you were a very thin curtain and you'd sort of fallen through it. Like that's the sensation of places like the Lyle Plateau, which seem to be otherworldly, especially at times like dawn or dusk. And so, and then also this Horse Thief Butte area. This is a picture up on the screen right now of the top of Horse Thief Butte, looking at Mount Hood, and on top of this desert mesa, you can climb through those secret passageways and get yourself on top of it fairly easily without any technical gear. when you're there, you definitely feel an energy of movement. If you close your eyes and calm your mind for just a moment. Yeah. And it is, even people who aren't spiritually sensitive say that they feel it. And
feel it. Man, I want to go.
Yeah. And
Sold
so
me.
there have been-
I'm ready for a trip. Zach, hey, thanks for calling in, bud.
Absolutely, James. Thank you so much for answering my questions. I do greatly appreciate it. I personally have never been over to the Pacific Northwest, but I'm hoping to be able to go over there next year because my sister and my brother-in-law live up in Salem, and I've wanted to go up there for a while.
Oh,
so
that's just a stone's throw away. Yeah.
So once again, thank you so much for answering my questions. And before I go, thank you also very much for your service.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Zach. Have a good night.
Have a good night, everybody.
Well, I think about, like, I've always loved is the David Pilates. Have you say it, Pilates? If you say his last name, Missing 411. People in the state parks and all that, they just go, like somebody's turns around and the person's gone, that quick. Yeah. And there's been all kinds of theories to Bigfoot doing it, to some kind of Thunderbird, to a big cat, or to time slips. And I am a big interest in time slips and how reality or time can bend sometimes in certain places and situations, like the Bermuda Triangle, or or these state parks where all this weirdness happens. People go missing. Have you looked too much into like the missing people in the area kind of deal, like strange missing persons cases?
We so as a part of protection for the staff, we maintain a very positive atmosphere, and we because I don't want to subject my folks to it's sort of a law of attraction kind of thing. And so we maintain a very high vibration as best we can. And so I think those things happen. I do think that people go on. We have the Pacific Crest Trail that runs perpendicular to the gorge, so right through here. And I know that there have been some disappearances on that. But it's not been a big part of the reporting that we've seen. And, we hear about people going missing in the news and things like that. But it doesn't seem to be the kind of thing that people want to walk in the store and talk about. And, to be perfectly honest
I get
with
that.
you,
I get that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a wondering when you talk about things that walk in that some people walk out, like they disappear.
Well, what I find, we'll talk a little bit about these small people. I'm going to show another thing.
I want to get into this.
So this one, for some reason, it's easy for me to wrap my head around Bigfoot. It's easy for me to wrap my head around a giant cat. But when people start talking about small humanoids, that kind of freaks me out. That's one of the ones that I
really
don't have a good, for whatever reason, it's a personal thing.
Do they look like that?
Well, this is a report that we received. It's close to that Horse Thief Butte area that I was telling you about.
Yeah.
And so this was someone that I've known for the whole 2 years that I've been down in the gorge. And I see him daily. And he was driving home from work at around 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. He lives in the desert part of the gorge. And he had passed by an area that's fairly close to his house, a place where he had, on previous occasions, seen owls standing on the side of the road. So this night, he drove by, and he saw a creature that looked like this. This creature was created with, AI art generator, and we went through several iterations until we got to the one to look closest to what he saw. He saw this creature standing on the side of the road. It was bipedal, very skinny. It had a head shaped like a praying mantis, but it wasn't a praying mantis. He said that it was as tall as the hood of his car, so 2 to 3 feet tall. And he only saw it in the headlights for a few moments, and then he passed by. As soon as he passed it, all the lights in the center console of his vehicle went dark, and his phone alarm started going off, and it was sort of freaking out. He drove about 200 or 300 yards, and then he started feeling dizzy and sick. He thought maybe I should go back because James is going to want to hear about this, and they thought, hell no, and he just went home. So that
did he have missing time?
He did not report missing time, but again,
I'm
it's
very
late at night.
curious. Well, the reason I'm saying is
Go on.
The owl things. I'm big into. We're having we're having Terry Lovelace, who's a friend of mine's an abductee, on next Sunday, and the owl thing. For one, you mentioned that he's seen owls. That's a big signal to memory, what they call screen memory. Is the seeing the owls. It's a very common thing, and then to actually see a creature, and then have his lights and radio, everything shut off.
Mm-hmm.
And then to be sick, because usually if you've been exposed to these things, you can have like sickness feelings, like especially nausea. So it makes me wonder if he was abducted.
Well, I do too. He's a person that I trust. We have also received reports of small humanoids clothed, wearing clothing, and some with large ears. And these to me sound a lot like
Fae.
Yeah, very much like Fae. When you look at the Fae experience, very similar to alien abduction. There seems to be a lot of loss
There's
of
a
time.
lot of history there.
There seems to be, being carried to, strange environments on beams of light. There seems to be like this reproductive program that they're engaged in. And so, and of course, the Native Americans have stories out here. And in fact, one story that I uncovered in an anthropological writing said that these small creatures that are like humans but small are responsible for carving some of the petroglyphs.
Ooh, interesting.
And I that caught my eye. So the picture that's on the screen now is we call it the cryptid. It's my research vehicle.
Nice truck.
And we've got a bunch of cameras, remote control spotlights, and stuff to make sure that we can handle any of the terrain out here in the gorge. Because once you get out of the gorge itself, it gets a little hairy. So I took the cryptid out to this location of the small humanoid.
Yeah.
Did some EMF readings. Nothing was anomalous there. Did find owl pellets on the side of the road. And again, it was fascinating to me that the owls were standing on the side of the road. And he said he'd seen them at least on 5 other occasions in that exact same spot. I found some footprints, but they were fairly inconclusive. And interestingly, not far from this location are some high power lines coming off one of the hydroelectric dams. So again, this seems to be part of the constellation of things that people are encountering here in the gorge. To me, one of the just many mysteries that we live with on a daily basis here.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting though. Like I said, the whenever I hear somebody say anything involved with small humanoid alien like being and owls and electromagnetic effects your cars, I'm like you're being abducted. So just I'm thinking, but you found an owl pellet, so that's pretty interesting that that they were there. It's so weird. It's such a weird experience. You have all this electromagnetic energy going on, from the natural land, and then you talk about the nuclear power plants or whatever not nuclear, but the hydroelectric power plants, power lines. We got radio towers and microwaves, and we're pumping the environment full of our own unnatural electromagnetic energy that's mixing with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So again, I would love to have more folks come out, even if you're an amateur investigator, and try to solve some of these mysteries. Like I said, there's so much here. There's no way that I could do it all myself.
I'm curious to this as a paranormal investigator. I guess start out. I mean, I've always been interested in all these topics, but I'm foremost, into haunted locations. For hauntings, does there seem to be like a lot of like haunted house paranormal activity connected?
So, right about where my nose is where my store is, and where my mouth.
I love how we keep using your head as reference here for locations. Point your nose here.
Yep.
Huh.
And so right across the river from us, there's a bridge that crosses the river. There's only maybe 3 or 4 bridges that cross the river in the gorge. Is the town of Hood River, and there is the Columbia Gorge Hotel, which is one of the 10 most haunted places in Oregon. And they have at least 4 distinct apparitions.
All right, so that's where I need to stay. Okay.
Yep. And so that's definitely one of the hot spots that that we see. Also, I'm going to share the screen again because there's this place called Beacon Rock. And Beacon Rock is, like I said, it's the second largest monolith in the northern hemisphere. And it looks like, on a good day, something like this. All right, so it's 840 feet tall. There's actually a trail that is pinned to the side of the cliffs, and it's super safe. There's a railing, and it's
so you can get to the top.
Wide. Yeah, you could. And I walk my dog up there in the morning. Like, so it's our morning hike. It only takes like 40 minutes to get up there. It's really cool.
Awesome.
So in the field below this is where people have reported orbs, those glowing orbs. But so this whole area is Beacon Rock State Park, and I've had the opportunity to chat with some of the maintenance workers there, and they say that they've seen ghostly apparitions at several of the trailheads.
Really?
One of the leading theories is that this is a place where the Civilian Conservation Corps worked in the 1930s. I believe that there was a few deaths, and so it may be those guys who have, unfinished business. It's also the story of a guy named Randy Roth who pushed his wife off the top of Beacon Rock and murdered her. Yeah, and so he was never charged for her death. But then 10 years later, he killed another wife under very similar circumstances.
Same rock push? Or?
Well, so
different rock.
For this wife, he had convinced her to take out a $100,000 life insurance policy, which took effect 3 weeks before he pushed her. The other wife he had her take out a $300,000 life insurance policy and drowned her in a lake, and claimed that they both got swamped. Anyway, the folks on that second one, they weren't buying it, and they eventually convicted him of murder for his second wife. And the prosecutors down here in Skamania County said, well, if he gets 50 years, we're not going to reopen the investigation into his first wife, Janice. But there's a woman who was murdered at Beacon Rock, and justice was never finalized for her death.
What's it made out of? Like,
this is made out of mostly andesite, but basalt. So these are the basalt columns you can see there. Interestingly, there's 3 tunnels carved into the base of it, and this plug, it's a volcanic plug, so it was basically scoured clean during those floods, but this volcano is only 57,000 years old, and its roots go deep into the core of the earth. And so, when I talk about this vertical energy, like, this is literally a live wire that is connected to the...
That's what I was picturing it.
Yeah, and you're just seeing the, very tip of the iceberg on this thing. But it is a really phenomenally interesting place. And so you had asked, are there ghosts out here? And so the Beacon Rock area, definitely a hot spot for ghosts. And then also there in Hood River, there's a number of places on the Oregon side that are haunted. There's this right across the river from me. There's a place called Cascade Locks, and they have they've got this room of creepy dolls, and they know they're creepy. And there's also this like weird ass mannequin that's in their kitchen, and it's been reported to say goodbye to people, which would freak me the hell out. So anyway, that would freak another. Me out. The mannequin says goodbye. Time to hit the road, if you ask me. So
I just was curious because you have so much electromagnetic anomalies there. I call the show Paranormal Soup, and as you mentioned, it's like a soup of the phenomenon. That's what I named the show. It's like I believe that all these things are connected somehow. So one thing, a law of physics we have not yet to understand. Or something in the realm of quantum physics maybe we don't understand yet.
Think about what a nut job Benjamin Franklin must have seemed to his neighbors. He's out in a lightning storm, flying a kite with a metal string and a key. Like, what are you talking about? That's like 1752. He's out there, complete freak wacko. He's dealing with things that are sorcery, never proven. And now here we are, a couple hundred years later, and as the foundation of our society was...
Look at Tesla.
Exactly.
I mean, look how you treated Tesla.
And so I kind of look at it like, when you go back, we talked about those cave paintings. Every culture is talking about impossible things, like the pharaohs they're awash with these human-animal hybrids. Same thing for South America, China, dragons in China, you name it. Like every culture is talking about this stuff. And so you look at it, and it's like the best and the brightest of every culture, like in indigenous populations, is the shaman, and they are intimately involved with paranormal, so-called paranormal phenomenon. And the pharaohs, they're the leaders of the Egyptian civilization, which, by the way, lasted for thousands of years, a very stable civilization. And so as you look at it, there are the elites who are very interested in paranormal. Then there's the masses, people like me, who are, just trying to, figure out how to tie our shoes in the
Pay your
morning.
bills. Yeah.
Yeah, and we are intuitively aware that there's something going on. There's more than just a physical world. And there's really just this very small, thin segment of the population with their arms folded that are acting like arrogant teenagers who think they know everything, right? They're like, they're so impressed with their own learning and knowledge that they've closed off any opportunity for there to be more to the world than they have personally experienced.
Well, what's in their small little pool of people that they believe in a certain
Yeah.
reality. I know. I deal with that all the time.
And they have especially scientists, have all kinds of social and financial and professional incentives to toe the line and have a physical only reality. But, they're really just a small portion of the population. For me, it's much wiser to say, well, science and understanding the physical world has gotten us really far, but there's a good chance we haven't learned everything. So let's be a little more
still ways to go. Yeah.
A little more wise, and let's reserve judgment before closing things down and acting like a teenager who knows everything.
Now, I'm always, when I was, the places I went, like I said, my gorge is Red River Gorge. That's where I'd go hiking and spelunking and that. I got to imagine with that kind of lava and water flow activity, there's got to be impressive cave and underground systems there.
Yeah.
And
just today I was out exploring some before the interview. And
really?
So, there's a place called Falls Creek Cave. It's really cool. Like there's this sinkhole, and the sides of it are too steep to get down in there. Like you'd have to rappel down into it. But just a couple hundred yards away is another sinkhole, and that's one's a little more accessible. It goes about maybe 100 yards through this underground tunnel, and then that gets you to that first sinkhole. And there are trees growing in this thing. It's like a complete little ecosystem. And then that leads you into Falls Creek Cave, which goes for miles. I mean, it is a true Underdark experience. It goes for miles and miles. The ceilings are like 40 feet tall. Like it is just this cavernous, amazing place. And, it's maybe 35 minutes from my house. In fact, last weekend, my 9-year-old daughter and I were out there, and we were clambering around in the cave. She's such a badass. I love it. 'Cause she does.
I know when I took my kids to go ghost hunting, almost 2 years ago, we went down to St. Augustine to see Rob. I was a little bit worried. This is going to be their first experience. I'm like, am I a bad parent? They loved every second of it. They were all
I drop her off at school in that crazy rig I showed you, and she loves it.
Well, she's probably one of the coolest kids at school. I got 9 years old in that rig. Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun.
Oh yeah, that's got to be. But like the cave, with the cave systems, I've always been interested in. Like not only just like the missing 411, where they've tied it to all the cave systems, but Bigfoot sightings tied to cave systems, and then like you talk about like the small people, whatever. There's like remember there's the they had the Kentucky Goblin or whatever incident, things like that, where they like came out of a cave system or whatever and attacked the family, and people have had like seen these like small reptilian creatures too. They've described them in like cave systems. There's a whole inner earth thing. I don't know if I buy the whole inner earth thing, but
my sense,
but there might be something to it.
I think we're talking about an adjacent reality, or one that where we're not tuned into it, because there are so many stories from around the world of people living, like these races living in a stone. And like that doesn't seem to make any sense. Like how could something live in a stone? Or they come from an underwater realm, or they come from a sky realm. And so you hear these things that physically, like the blocks don't fit together. Like they can't be real based on what we currently understand. There is this So I showed you that Beacon Rock. Very near there's another mountain called Little Beacon Rock. And we have out here what I call fey gardens. So they're like these areas, rocky areas that are moss covered. And this one's got a monolith in it. And we've had stories that this is a portal. It's like a standing stone. It's sort of in this field of stones near this formation we call the stegosaur, because it looks like it's got all these, looks like a stegosaurus with all these plates on its back. But this thing is like this, it's 10-foot tall monolith. And we've had reports of people saying they've seen things dancing there, and then they disappear. And so, you know, these are the kind of things that, again, we get the reports, and I'm trying to make sense of them, but they seem to really relate to other traditions in other parts of the world. It seems like there is a persistent reality that is similar but different to the one that we experience every day. And some people are able to access that under certain conditions, or sometimes that reality bleeds into ours. And I think some combination of those things are happening here in the gorge all the time.
Could be people are witnessing when they see the cat, you know, for instance, is something that some people would see because they're in tune to it. You know what I'm saying? While others might not see it at all.
Yeah, or it might account for the different appearances that people are having. You know,
True.
Everyone knows that story of the Indians couldn't perceive the tall ships when they saw them for the first time because it wasn't within their, you know,
realm of perspective,
of reality,
I guess.
anything they'd ever experienced before. I don't know. But to me, it's incredibly fascinating. Like, I can't tell you like what a lottery jackpot it has been for my family to move down. First of all, this place that is stunningly beautiful. Like, I drive to work every morning and my jaw drops, and it's the thing I see every day, right?
Right.
You know, I took my daughter out to that Horse Thief Butte area, and she might have been 7 at the time. Margie was still alive, and she was running around. I told her she was Link from Zelda, right? Because that's one of her favorite video games. But she was tromping around through these canyon ways and up these little rock gullies, and she kept on saying, "Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God, for showing me such a beautiful place." And we're not a religious family, but even this 7-year-old was just overwhelmed by what a unique and stunningly beautiful place it is. And so, you know, we've moved down here. We've made this our life. You know, I was, you know, actually I had a really fun career. I worked for Wizards of the Coast. You know, I worked
I saw your Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, and so, you know, and I've had some really great success in the corporate world working, but when we had the opportunity to take on some family-owned stores, we did. We moved down here, and it's a adventurer's paradise, but then there's this really beautiful, textured, interesting, complex layer of these things that don't seem to obey the laws of physics as we know them. And it's just part of the culture down here. It's part of what people experience every day. And to me, it's just such a blessing to like be in the heart of mystery, you know? And so, like I said, I go on these interviews because I'm inviting people to come out and see this place that I've just fallen in love with. And there are so many mysteries to uncover. Like, you could spend a lifetime down here and never get to the bottom of it. And to me, like, there's so much wonder and enchantment down here that I really would love for more people to come down and investigate with me.
Well, I know our family, it's been, we got to go like on our actual, sadly, first family vacation a couple of years ago. We got down to Florida right after, you know, we're just finally everything unlocking after COVID.
Yeah.
But, you know, we're trying to like plan new trips, go places here, hopefully in the future. And, you know, now that I got my kids on like the ghost hunting thing, you know, like they're enjoying that. I'm like, I might go to like a paranormal hotspot, you know, like, but we need to go camping because we haven't taken them camping even.
Yeah.
We've been so shut in, you know, it's so stupid, but we need to go camping and that. I'd love to go out there. I used to do it when I was in my 20s.
You're only 11 hours from me. I've been out there a long time ago fishing and camping, but we're getting an RV pretty soon and want to go up north. So
You should
might
absolutely
have to put that on the list.
Yeah, contact me before you come. I will show you some of the coolest hidden spots out here.
That would
Because,
be
like,
amazing.
Jamie can meet us up there, and Jeff with the RV.
Mhm.
Yeah.
there you go. Make a deal out of it. I'd love
I got to
that.
talk my
That'd be
wife
a
and
lot of
kids
fun.
into that, but my wife would be on
Yeah.
board.
Yeah, well, there's a ton of fun stuff out here for kids, and so anyway, I'm not going to turn this into a brochure on how awesome the gorge is, but needless to say, there is plenty of awesome stuff to do. There's a Skamania Lodge. They've got a high ropes course. It's kind of Bigfoot themed out there, but it's like a 4-star resort. It's pretty neat.
It's interesting to see now how many more businesses and things are like putting the Bigfoot thing up, like more acceptance of it. It's not, just like the UFO, especially UFOs now. I mean, I don't know if you noticed the whole Las Vegas alien crashing, like how mainstream quickly that's gone. It's just such a weird time we live in. But Bigfoot's gotten a little pull into that world where it's gotten a little more acceptable, Big Cat's not so much yet, like with ape faces. I think that's still a stretch for some people. Not for me, but...
Yep, for sure.
But Bigfoot's becoming more like, okay, I could probably believe you. I think see more people give a little more acceptance to it. Some of that has to go with the TV shows in the last 20 years, like putting the idea out there. But, I think it's just more people coming out and speaking up about it.
I've always thought, well, a world with Bigfoot is far more interesting than a world without one. So I'm going to believe, right? Because, why not? There's no skin, there's no damage done to you if you choose to believe that. But since I've moved down here, I've had enough credible people come in and tell me stories that there is a reality to it. There's no doubt in my mind. It's not all these people are liars, and the notion that you would even suggest that these people who are putting themselves at risk and going out on a limb are either crazy or liars or some type of attention whores or something like that. That's
or that everybody just misunderstood what they saw. That's the other explanation.
These adults don't know what they're looking at, and you who weren't there do, right? So what I love is that all of my neighbors, just like we all see bears and we all see elk, we all see Sasquatches and we all see glowing orbs, and not everyone sees it every day, but it's kind of just par for the course down in this place.
Glowing orbs is something I've always been fascinated by too, just because of the phenomena, what it might be. Is it some kind of life form, or is it just the is it from tectonic pressure and like electromagnetic occurrence and anomalies that you see like in the John Hutchinson experiments? What are they? I've always been fascinated by what the ghost lights or whatever people want to call them.
Exactly. And like I said, it's really, really common. Like a couple stopped me at the post office just the other day to tell me about the glowing orbs they saw in the sky that looked like a triangle at first, and they all condensed into a single point. We've had people say that they've seen craft flying above the river, then diving into the river. There's just so much of it going on out here. And when you talk to the people, in every other aspect, they're normal, everyday townsfolk, right? There's nothing extraordinary. That's not like they're writing a book or, trying to prove anything. A lot of times they're kind of timid and shy about the whole experience. And here they are, having these unusual encounters. And even when we heard those vocalizations outside of the garage door, it wasn't like a life-changing event. It was just, there's the thing that's happening.
We got to hear Bigfoot. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but
that's the thing. I live in Indiana, like Lake Michigan, and I'd never heard anybody in our area really having a Bigfoot encounter. I'm not in an area where we're going to see Bigfoot, but I believe that it exists because of all the witnesses. I'm sorry, not everybody's going to be a liar. Not everybody's going to be misunderstood what they see. And not just all the witnesses here in North America in the last modern age. I'm talking it goes back thousands of years, multiple cultures. I think there's plenty of evidence, witness testimony that there is something there in multiple areas of the world that is human-like, big, sometimes small, that is not your normal, it's not a bear, it's not an ape, it's something else.
Exactly. It's just, and honestly, it's just so much more joyful to live in a world that still has wonder and mystery, And even if we never answer these questions, I mean, it's such a more magical, enchanted, joyful, fulfilling, satisfying way to live when this is a part of your reality, when you haven't closed those doors and you allow your extreme possibilities to be a part of your world.
Now, in the Bigfoot communities, there's a kind of a dividing line between those that are, it's a physical creature, to those that think it's something more on the extra dimensional paranormal realm. You know, that I've seen that divide over the last 7 years of doing this show get bigger. And I've always tended to be, I don't know. I think there could be both the best worlds of that possibility, you know. Like a place like where you're talking in the Columbia River Gorge, it sounds more like, I mean, the possibility it could be a creature is very real. I mean, anything could be living out there and surviving, and we would not know. You know, it's just we can't cover that kind of land. There could be a population of Bigfoot out there. But, I mean, in your opinion, in the stories you've gotten, do you think more of the stories tend towards that paranormal feel? Like something they've witnessed that had something more than just a physical creature they witnessed?
You know, my personal beliefs are that it is probably some type of trans-dimensional type of creature or something that lives in an adjacent perceptive reality.
Yeah.
Because there's just there's so many stories, so many experiences, but the physical evidence is
very slim.
Seems slender. What's interesting is that the guy that comes in and has had by far the most Sasquatch encounters. This is the guy who believes there are pinch points on his property that they travel through. The guy's brought in the hair samples. I asked him about that very question, and just to give you a sense, like he's seen young ones, he's seen old ones, he's seen, you know, he says that the young ones have fur and the old ones have hair. He's talked about some being, you know, 13 to 15 feet tall, standing in blackberry patches that he's seen.
Bigfoot.
That's a huge Bigfoot. It's a huge creature just in general. He's talked about seeing them pregnant and different social interactions. So he has had dozens of encounters. And I asked him, so do you think it's a biological creature? He's like, oh, for sure. It's a biological creature, 100%. And then he said, I
get that.
And they seem to have the ability to teleport because
see, there you go.
And like for him, there was no disconnect.
But that's the thing. It's the best of both. Right. They're both true.
Yeah, and his description was that, you know, they seem to be able to like do 50-yard jumps was what he has observed on numerous occasions, where they'll be walking away from you and suddenly like they're really far away from you in an instant, and they're really far away from you in an instant. And how they're able to do that is, again, seems to defy the laws of physics as we understand it. But for him, these are creatures that are having babies, they're young, they're getting pregnant, they've got personalities, they have had treaties with the Native Americans. These are some stories we've heard of, you know, different berry picking areas and mushroom picking areas and salmon gathering areas are part of the relationship that they've had an enduring with the indigenous people by some reports. And these are not reports from Native Americans, but people who have spoken to them apparently. And so it's a interesting phenomenon. Supernatural is only super because we don't understand it yet. Right. And so I think that there's room for both. I don't think that it needs to be a purely physical creature. And, you know, this ape cat could be a purely physical creature. We could be talking about the same kind of thing here, though. We got to go to our last commercial break. We got a half an hour left, and we'll keep the phone lines open if anybody wants to call in. But our guest tonight is James. I'm keep butchering this. Szubski. James Szubski. Yeah, we're talking about the Columbia River Gorge. He is the owner or operator officer of Margie's Outdoor Store, where they received a lot of reports about these paranormal weird occurrences and Bigfoot and big cats, all that kind of strangeness. When we come back from the short commercial break, we'll continue on, and the phone lines will be back open.
intercepted a transmission of unknown origin.
Transmission? Out here?
SOS.
Human.
Unknown.
Alien. Certificate X. Exclusive engagement at the Odeon Leicester Square. Now.
Any systematized transmission indicating a possible intelligent origin must be investigated.
In space, no one can hear you scream.
If you are interested in discovering the truth about the paranormal and want to hear from leading researchers in the field, join Justin Brown on his 3 weekly shows named My Paranormal Soapbox, Necromancer Live Show, and the Supernatural Symposium, live on Facebook, YouTube, and InterfaceDeath.net.
This is an APAC studio presentation.
Hi, I'm Barry, owner-operator of Barry's Barometer Barn. Lately, I bet you've been lying awake at night asking yourself, how many barometers do I really need? Well, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we think you need more than one. Otherwise, we're gonna go out of business. Remember, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we don't know the meaning of high-pressure sales. Come on, folks, buy another barometer. I'm trying to put my kids through college, I've got a family to support, and a secret mistress who isn't cheap.
Visit Barry's Barometer Barn, 000 Storm Drive. Come on, folks, buy a barometer. I'm Barry's older brother, Larry, and every time one of you people walk past the store without coming in, Barry beats me.
This has been a presentation from Tim Morgan's APAC Studio. For more almost professional amateur comic studio content, visit the APAC YouTube channel. Search APAC 2002. That's APAC 2002 on YouTube.
When Alex Gardner is asleep, he has an extraordinary gift. The government wants it, the scientists want it. But to keep it may cost him his life. It might be better if Alex didn't sleep at all. But he cannot resist entering the dreamscape. Can you? See Dreamscape in the West End and all over London now. Certificate 15. It takes an extraordinary adventurer to enter the dreamscape.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from Talkstream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hopson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Heat 'em up.
Do, re,
gone.
You're listening to Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. The call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419. Or by Skype caller ID OOJBland00 or JBland Paranormal Soup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
Tonight on Paranormal Soup, our guest has been James Szubski, which I've been butchering his last name all night. But he is the operating officer of Margie's Outdoor Store in the Columbia River Gorge. They've gotten numerous reports, over 100 reports of paranormal sightings, some of them more cryptozoological, of either a cat-like creature with an 8 face or Sasquatch, of course, lots of Sasquatch sightings. We're talking about all this strangeness. It's a paranormal hotspot. And this is something that I've always been interested in. And it's places like this that might even have like time slips and other weird phenomena and portals and ghost lights because of the electromagnetic energy natural in the land from all the geological formations over, 1,000 million years or whatever. We're all into that tonight. Phone lines, let me make sure they are open now. You can call in. They're all available. 219-230-4444. 260-225-9419. Skype ID OOJBland00 or JBland Paranormal Soup. Those are the ways to call in. We've got about a half an hour left. Let's go ahead and get back to our guest. James, thanks for staying up with me tonight. Now, for you, living there, having your co-investigator 9-year-old daughter, when you go out, like I'm sure you guys go hiking and stuff like that, do you ever feel like a little scared, like of running into any of these things, like the big cat or the Sasquatch?
Well, I have a lot of experience outdoors. As a soldier, you kind of learn not to be afraid when you're outside. I mean, it's part of the job, right? And then, as a wildland forest firefighter, you're going to some of the most remote areas in some of the most dangerous conditions possible. And then, as a mountain guide and a search and rescue EMT, I have some really great training and a lot of experience and a lot of confidence in the wilderness. And so, to me, there's times to be cautious, but I can't say that I've ever felt afraid. It's just not a part of the outdoor experience for me. What is interesting is there was a report, and again, this is up on Underwood Mountain. So you saw that one sort of little tic-tac shaped UFO picture that we had.
Yeah.
But we had a really incredible encounter, and this individual saw lights above their farm, and eventually 2 red orbs descended from the craft and were sort of marching across the field towards him. And he had a moment of like someone flipped a switch and fear washed over his body. And I thought, oh, that is a really interesting part of the story.
Yeah.
Because so just to wrap up that tale, he ran into his house, got a shotgun, called the police. By the time he came back out, whatever was out there had left. But it was these 2 very strange red orbs seemed to be marching towards him, sort of leapfrogging across each other. And it was an experience he had that he described as more real than real. Like it didn't seem like there was, outside of the extraordinary nature of it, it felt as though he was having an actual real experience, right? So, and when you look at like that Michael Persinger studies with those electromagnetic God helmets, they have the ability to turn on and off emotions just like that. And so I guess the question is, do I ever feel afraid? The answer is not organically. There's no
You're not afraid of the wildlife.
No, there's really, and honestly, like when you talk about cougars, there's been like one cougar attack in 100 years in Washington State. And bear attacks, there's been time when they've messed up campsites, but black bears don't kill humans out here, right?
Unless it's a cocaine bear, like I just watched that movie.
You know, as a search and rescue guy, you know, we've saved a lot of lives and we've also unfortunately recovered a number of bodies. And people die from really two things in the wilderness. They die from hypothermia and they die from falling. Those are the two ways that 90% of people go out. It's very rare to have some kind of violent encounter that is the reason why you will die. And so if you're smart about those kind of things, and my kids are smart about it too, you know, I train them. So no, but that's not to say that there aren't. So for me, as I'm driving through the gorge, there's a 25-minute drive that I have. And I normally don't listen to the radio. I usually like to drive in silence.
I'm the same
way. I will find, as I'm passing through, like there's an area where there's 5 tunnels. And I started tracking like my emotional state. I'm like, all of a sudden I'll be angry at a certain part of the road. Or there are other times, and this one's frequent, is that you're just overwhelmed by beauty and your heart is filled with joy. Like that happens a lot on this road. And so lately I've been trying to like track my emotions and see if they are related to the area that I'm driving in, because like I said, there's the stratigraphy of those all those lava flows with the different magnetic orientations, and you drive right by those things, and in some cases, like there's 5 tunnels in one area that you literally drive through it.
You get bombarded by all these different kinds of electromagnetic fields, probably that are layered in there.
So I don't know. Now there are times when we'll get a report and I'll get the chills, or I'll get like a whoa, that's a little weird. Like you know, that it'll give me that kind of a sensation. But for me, it normally more manifests into curiosity.
Yeah. So. Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, you just wonder, like you talk about the God helmet, you know, I mean, when you get down to the people's experiences with that, people have had like the similar experiences people on ayahuasca where they're communicating with other beings and having like, you know, like almost like an abduction experience.
Or like that chamber, that aluminum chamber. That's in, I can't remember the name of it. It's kind of like in a Nautilus shell design, and they would have a person in one and a person in another, and there were all these different.
What do you go? Faraday cage, whatever. You know, no.
It's got the. I think that invented it. SZ some. I can't remember, but they had similar experience as well inside there.
Yeah. So I mean, like, there's 2 ways to look at that. Like, one is, are you having induced hallucinations? And my primary argument with that particular philosophy is that for you, so many people have the same experience under these conditions, right? So if multiple people are experiencing a big hairy ape-like creature, or a big hairy cat, or a light in the sky, that means that is programmed into us biologically, right? So that means that there has to be an evolutionary advantage to having that stimulus result in that perception. Otherwise, you can't explain it. Like if you're really going to be a materialist, that would have gotten washed out in the genetic mix a long, long time ago. And when we see that people are having these experiences from 40,000 years ago all the way into the present, that tells you that, okay, there's either it's an independent reality and you're shifting your perception to see it, and or it's a hallucination. And then if you say it's a hallucination, you have to account for its evolutionary advantage. Like, why do people have this experience?
Yeah, what was the reason?
What's the reason for it? And if you can't, your argument is not fulsome.
Well, the other issue is that you have people that have the experience, multiple people that see the same thing. Are they shared hallucination?
Exactly. And we have orbs captured on photography. We have UFOs captured on photography. We have, there's even in Hood River, there's a highway traffic cam that captured a Squatch running across the interstate and heading off towards the, jumping over the little traffic fence there. and then head down towards the river.
That one.
Yeah, if you look up Hood River traffic cam Bigfoot,
It sounds familiar.
Yeah, and so there's definitely, like, whatever these things are, they have the ability to move into our world and affect the physical world, and have their image can be captured in the world. But they also seem to be able to slip out of this world, and just like we may be having experiences of, and our consciousness travels to some other realm through ayahuasca or through this electromagnetic stuff. The same could be happening on the other side, where they are having that same kind of stimulus, and it is bringing them forward into our world. And like I said, when I'm up on the Lyle Plateau, in that particular area, that is the distinct sense that I get, like on an intuitive level. Though, I mean, I can't back it up with any kind of readings or anything.
No.
But that, I'm here in this place, and I have the clear sensation that I have passed through some type of barrier, and
it's a place where our world merges with another. Because of the electromagnetic issues going on there. It's just that our worlds are so close together that in certain areas they bleed through because of electromagnetic. There's something within the electromagnetic realm we still don't totally understand.
Yeah, there's a lot of mystery still going on out there about that. For sure.
There's the research into, basically be able to create a singularity black hole or miniature black hole of just pure electromagnetic energy. And if that's the case, that everything's, all possibilities could be open there when you have that much, natural stuff going on, that we could be having little singularity black holes happening there.
Funny you should mention
space-time. Oh, yeah.
So out at Hanford, they installed a facility in the early 2000s. It's called the LIGO. It stands for the Light Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory. And this is run by Caltech and MIT. And you go out into the desert near Hanford, and there are these two vacuum tubes that are 2.5 miles long, set perpendicular to each other. And you go to the LIGO's website, and their stated purpose is to detect anomalies in the space-time continuum. I'm not making it up.
That's a pretty big statement. Really? Wow.
And not only that, within a few weeks of turning it on, they actually detected anomalies in the space-time continuum. Their instruments are so sensitive that they can measure 1/10,000th of the width of the nucleus of an atom. And so that's how sensitive these apparatus are out there in the deserts near Hanford, which is still a gigantic hub of research, the Pacific Northwest National Laboratories out there. And so they are still doing insane stuff. You look at Freedom of Information Act disclosures from the Department of Energy, and they freely admit to investigating multiverses, pocket dimensions, hidden worlds. And, there's a big brouhaha that went on when Stranger Things came on.
Right.
Some social media guy, Paul Lester, I think his name was, said, "Oh, well, this show's just fiction. We don't explore parallel universes." And then, like, the Secretary of Energy and I think a woman named Rachel Carr, who's a fellow works with Senator Feinstein, jumped on him and said, "Nope, the Department of Energy does fund research into pocket dimensions, multiverses, hidden universes." And so that's one thing the show got right. And she was referring to a show that was talking about a creature escaping from another dimension and getting into our world and running around in a local community. And that's what she said they got right. So,
You're right.
And so that whole Hanford site is Department of Energy, top to bottom. It's everything that we know, like the Department of Energy came about because Hanford existed. And so there's even stories of cattle mutilations out here.
I was going to ask you what the mutilation factors were out there, what's going on, because that's something that's a big phenomenon across the world.
Well, what's interesting is that there was, back in the 1950s, a tragic experiment that was done at Hanford where they took the filters off the stacks and they basically irradiated a 200 square mile area with iodine-131, I think it was. And they never told the local population that this had happened to them. And when I listen to Bill Bear's oral histories that he's done, he talks about how they used to have to send out teams to covertly monitor livestock of local farmers.
Yep.
And so they would distract the farmers, and they'd take literal bodies, physical specimen samples off.
See, I've always wondered that.
And this whole thing is going on, so at the end of World War II, the Russians are soaking up all these Nazi scientists, so we initiate Operation Paperclip, and we bring in Nazi scientists, and 100% guaranteed that there were Nazi medical doctors that were overseeing experiments going on at Hanford. And so, we never really escaped the diabolical nature of their human experimentation. And it became a part of it. Exactly. And so, thank God the people that are there at Hanford now are very diligent, and they're working very hard to clean it up, and there's a lot of effort going into that. And I believe that there's some really genuine people, and they're trying to make right decades of, let me put it to you this way. There are biologists out there who are tracking radioactive bunny poop. The rabbits hang out next to the barrels of nuclear waste because they're warm. They get irradiated, and then they have
go and spread it.
Hanford is a 600 square mile area. It is half the size of Rhode Island. It is an enormous facility. And so these irradiated rabbits are running around, and they're getting scooped up by cougars and coyotes and
they're irradiated,
snakes and everything else.
Yeah.
I have a friend who worked with a biologist who was doing studies at Hanford, and he said they were finding 3-eyed rattlesnakes and stuff like that. And so
you had to say snakes, especially 3 eyes.
Yeah, and so and even this guy, Dr. Lauren Donaldson, I found a debate he was in the 1970s. It was published in the Seattle Times, or the Seattle newspaper, might have been the Post-Intelligencer. And his assertion was that, yes, high doses of radiation mutate animals horribly, and you typically don't survive. But in low doses, those creatures actually become stronger and more survivable. And so it's sort of like getting inoculated. And so you've got this stressor that's introduced into your environment. And at low doses, your body takes the hit and then adjusts and becomes stronger. And so you look at Chernobyl, there are these thriving populations of wolves and all kinds of other creatures out there. We thought it was just going to be this horrible wasteland of mutated and dead creatures, but it's one of the most thriving wilderness areas. And in fact, Hanford is that way now. It's one of the best wildlife preserves. And so the notion that Hanford had an effect on the wildlife here. So,
it did.
May I ask,
of course it did. Yeah.
Is that where the group of dogs that I hear about sometimes are from? Those wild dogs that have gotten these superhuman powers or something over time?
In Chernobyl?
Yeah.
I think that's where that's going on.
Yeah.
Now, what's the connection with the gorge? So Hanford is 100 miles away. So it's upstream, but a fair distance away, right? But likely anything that was impacted there is going to move to the cover of the mountains. And so I was following up on a Sasquatch report in a place called, we call it Monster Mountain. It's the Monte Cristo Natural Wildlife or Wilderness Preserve. And I was driving around on the back roads, and I swear to God, I saw a black bobcat walking on the Forest Service Road. And I couldn't get my camera out in time, and which is why my rig now has 5 cameras and a drone in it. But
nice.
So I saw a black bobcat, and I did the follow-up research, and black bobcats are recognized by science, but there's only 20 of them that have ever been documented in the history of the United States. Wow. And I saw one. And then we've had reports, another guy has come in and said he saw 2 sitting on a picnic table down by the river. And they saw him and they tried it off. And so we've got a population of black bobcats here. I personally have seen black wild rabbits out here. And so we may have these areas that have been geographically fenced off, and we've got these unique populations, and maybe something from Hanford is inducing a melanistic trait to express itself in the creatures that
could
live
be
out
affecting
here.
them. Yeah,
we don't know, but it is entirely possible. as a search and rescue guy, we would often go on evidence searches where we're looking for bones or weapons. In fact, my search and rescue team was the one that found the Green River Killer remains and the Ted Bundy remains.
Wow.
I wasn't obviously part of the team at that time, but back in the day.
Yeah.
And it would take a team of us, like 40 of us, a full weekend to search a 300-yard by 300-yard area that was right off the side of the road.
Yeah.
And then you look at like the Cascade Mountains, 80,000 square miles of the most rugged terrain that goes from sea level to 14,000 feet.
There's places you just can't even reach. I mean,
like people who say, why haven't you found a Sasquatch body yet, have no conception of the scope and scale of the area that we're talking about looking for. And the amount of
forest eats things alive.
Exactly. And even if you were able to search the whole area, by the time you started, the things at the top would have been, decomposed, especially in the rainforest areas. And so, like, there are so many, like I said, geographic pockets. There are these electromagnetic eddies. We were driving around in the cryptid, which is what I call that rig. And my daughter was in the back seat, and we had to pull off to the side of the road to let another vehicle pass. And she was looking out the window and said, "Oh, Dad, I see a big snake. I see a big snake. It's like 3 feet long. And it's got fins on the side of its head." And I said, oh, tell us more about these fins. And she had this very detailed description of these fins that had a reddish color that faded to a yellowish color, and the whole snake was 3 to 4 feet long. She didn't recognize that she was describing a creature that is not recognized by science. Immediately after we got home, I did a research on snakes in North America. There are no snakes that have frills on the side of their head. In fact, in North America, there are no lizards that have frills on the side of their head like that. And here's this 9-year-old kid excited about seeing wildlife outside of the vehicle, and we're talking 3 minutes from the house. And she is reporting, and I questioned her about it on numerous occasions to see if she's changed her story. She didn't think she was reporting something unusual. She was just seeing a snake.
Right.
And yet it had this extraordinary feature. And so my sense is that there is something here, whether it's mundane, geographic fencing, or something interacting with these crazy electromagnetic fields out here, that we are close to a adjacent universe or something. I don't know.
Like I said, it could be a place where, there's certain places where the geomagnetic phenomenon is taking two worlds and they're colliding, they're merging there. And that's why we're getting walk-ins of these kind of creatures that we have no physical evidence of, because they're like ghosts in a sense. They're here, but they're not. They're not totally in our reality.
Yeah. And and people who wear that God helmet say yes, they see full form people standing in front of them or entities standing in front of them, and yet they can't touch them. And so rather than saying that they're crazy, or rather than saying that this is a fabrication of the mind, there are other possibilities related to that. And the idea that there's an adjacent reality that we're talking about, where I like this term of walk-ins that you're using. We can't dismiss that out of hand. And one of the things that I'm thankful for with this, the Navy being serious about UFO disclosures, is that now more and more pilots are coming forward and telling their stories.
True. Yeah.
And that's one of the things that was important to us as we started our project at the store, was giving people a safe place to tell their stories. And I think that's why we've had so many. And honestly, that's been one of the really unexpected gems, one of the most beautiful parts about this, these human connections. Like, I'll meet a stranger and they'll tell me a story that they may have been holding for 5 or even 10 years of a really unusual experience that they have been isolated from even their own family from talking about.
Right.
And there are these incredible emotional releases for people that we wind up typically hugging. And, there's a real beautiful human connection to have your reality recognized and not questioned.
Shared.
And have someone not need to jump in and make it normal and
Right.
make their world as they know it. I think, and you can't blame people. They've got, there's a very strong incentive to keep the world the way it is and not have stuff, because it's hard enough to manage life with all
Yeah,
the
like I said, you
normal
got to get
phenomena.
up, pay the bills, feed the
Right.
kids,
And
Yeah, I
so
get it.
it's super tempting when someone tells you something extraordinary to normalize it, to make it not weird, to make them be wrong. But when you don't do that, and when you allow there to be space for this person to express this experience, which was real for them, the human connection and the beauty of that moment has been overwhelming for me. It's been one of the most beautiful parts of this whole experience.
I say it on my show. It's what I love the most about my show over 7 years of doing this and I'm probably heading towards 8. I don't know. I might have missed the anniversary. I don't know. But we've been doing it at least 7 years, is the fact it's opening up to meeting people like you and on the people that watch the show and call in and hearing all these experiences, is that having a place to give people a forum where they can share, because we can only learn if we share these experiences. And we grow up in a world that likes to, belittle you when you try, and it's people like you with your store or me with the show that we have to give people these forums and these spaces to discuss these things and share it without any judgment.
Science is always the last to know. The first to know are field observations, and science is a great process, but it is a long and arduous process, and it's rife with all kinds of social issues and needing proof and all these other kind of things. And if you stop a eyewitness account dead in its tracks, you never see what's going on. One of the things that's so interesting are the patterns that begin to emerge. And I know that you've seen that in your work, where you're like, yep, we've heard this kind of a story before from a different source.
Yep.
And that's part of what we're doing, is we're looking for what are those patterns and how are these things related, and what's going on here geologically in the gorge that could help us understand it.
Well, before we go, any information you want to get out, website or contact information to the audience tonight?
Yeah, so the best way to take a look at pictures and see that video of the ape cat and our sort of initial description of it, that's on the website, margiesoutdoorstore.com, margiesoutdoorstore.com. There you can get a hold of me. We have staff at margiesoutdoorstore.com is a great way to contact me. Happy to do interviews and let people know what's going on out here. One of the things that I've been working on is things called arcane adventure maps. And so I'm taking these reports that we have and focusing on a hotspot like Beacon Rock or Horse Thief Butte.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like a 4-page self-guided tour. So you can come into the store if you're in the area and pick this up and see right where the ape cat sightings were or the little people sightings were, and gives you the directions on how to get there and local lore and legends. And
I got a new family vacation pitch, so to my wife. Like, hey,
so, yeah.
Let's go to Washington.
Yep. And so those are the things we're working on. I'm working with a tour group. They wanted to do a bus tour of the gorge, and I said, let's do a paranormal tour. We'll take people to the actual locations where some of these things have occurred. So we're spinning that up. Probably won't be online until September, October timeframe.
Should get yourself some. If you should do a night one and get some of those night vision, really good night vision cameras.
Oh, that would be so cool.
You see what you see in the sky at night or something like that too.
Yeah.
Because I mean, one, you have anything with the nuclear activity in the area, military and experiments and all that. Aliens, I think, have a big interest in that.
Well, what's interesting
nuclear power
is that
plants.
You talked about Kenneth Arnold. Well, those UFOs were in range of Hanford, but 2 years before Kenneth Arnold, there were UFOs spotted at Hanford. So they've been interested in that. Well, yeah,
I would not surprised.
Yeah, I mean, like they are creating new elements on an industrial scale there. Of course, if an alien's going to be interested in anything or an extraterrestrial intelligence, I would say that would qualify. So
that would definitely qualify. Well, thank you so much, James, for being on the show. Definitely love to have you on again. But that is it, guys. We got to go. Next Sunday, same bad time, same bad channel. We're going to have Terry Lovelace, author of Incident of Devil's Den, on the show with his new book, Free Fall. We're going to be talking about near-death experiences. You know, he's an alien abductee, but he actually has had a lot of people contact him about some of the similarities between alien abduction and near-death experiences, and we're going to get into that next Sunday night, same bad time, same bad channel, 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. Central, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. Pacific time. Thank you, everybody who subscribes and follows on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. Keep sharing out, telling your friends. Paranormal Soup, place where the weird happens live every Sunday night, and an open forum and place where no judgments. Tell your experiences here. We'd love to hear them. Thank you again, James. Thank you to everyone. See you next week. Have a great night.